This episode is brought to you by Athletic Greens. Athletic Greens is one of my favorite parts of my morning routine. As all of you know, because I talk about it a lot, I prioritize eating whole foods when it comes to my nutrition. I mostly follow a paleo-ish way of eating, but it can be really hard to get fresh produce and high-quality food when you live on the road or travel to remote climbing areas. One scoop of Athletic Greens has 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food-sourced superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. I think of it as all-in-one nutritional insurance. If I take Athletic Greens in the morning, I know I'm covered, and that gives me a tremendous peace of mind throughout the rest of the day. It's great. To make your decision easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/nugget. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/nugget to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. This episode is also brought to you by PhysiVantage. I also take PhysiVantage Supercharged Collagen every day. Why? Because my fingers need collagen to get stronger. Hello. I talk about that all the time too. Supercharged Collagen is a research-based, athlete-proven supplement that supports collagen synthesis in connective tissues and the force transfer matrix of muscle. What the hell does all that mean? Well, to me, it means if you want stronger fingers, you should be supplementing with collagen. I personally am taking collagen an hour before my finger training to get the most out of my training, and I really think it helps. It makes sense, and it's working. It's awesome. Collagen is super helpful for recovering from injuries as well. I had a bicep tendon injury this winter, and having a lot of collagen in my diet was super helpful for getting back to 100%. If you would like to feel the PhysiVantage, head over to PhysiVantage.com and use code NUGGET15 at checkout to save 15% off your next order. That's PhysiVantage.com and use code NUGGET15 at checkout to save 15% off your order. Hello, friends. Welcome to another episode of the Nugget Climbing Podcast. This is your host, Stephen Dimmitt, and my guest today is Sam Stroh. I sat down with Sam in Waco Tanks a couple months ago. It was so much fun. We had a great conversation, and I really, really enjoyed this one. Sam has a lot of great stories. He's a badass, strong boulderer, sport climber, and big wall climber. He's done everything from double-digit high-ball boulder problems to ground-up free ascents on El Capitan. Tons of other hard stuff in the valley. He's totally crushing it. He's totally young and psyched. And kind of flying by the seat of his pants and having some wild adventures along the way. So this was a really fun conversation with tons of great stories from Sam. It takes us a little while to warm up in this one, so give it a little time. I promise you this one delivers, and I hope you enjoy. Also, we talked about Sam's knee injury towards the end of this conversation. Happy to announce that Sam is back in action, back to climbing 514, and is totally crushing it out at Smith Rock, which is very funny given how we talk about Smith in this episode. Before we jump in, I want to give a couple quick shout outs to some new patrons of the show. Big thanks to Renzollama, that's such a cool name, and Zach Emery. Thank you both for signing up for the $30 per month tier and going way above and beyond to support the show. It's super awesome. It's a huge help to me. And for those of you who are new to the podcast, I have a Patreon, and for the $30 tier, $10 of that is going to the Nugget, and then $10 is going to each of 2 different nonprofits that we support at the Nugget. So that's Climbing for Change, Kai Leitner's nonprofit, and Sacred Rock, which was started by Ron Kauk and Katie Lambert. Both of those nonprofits are doing super cool things, helping youths and helping marginalized or underprivileged kids get into the sport. So again, super cool. Really appreciate the support from both of you. If you want to help out the show, you can learn all the things at patreon.com/thenuggetclimbing. Tons of bonus episodes over there, ad-free episodes so you can skip right to the good stuff, and a lot more. Go check it out. Consider supporting the show. And in the meantime, please enjoy this very fun conversation with Sam Stroh.
Cause no one can do it like we do it, like we do it, like we do it. Cause no one can do it like we do it, like we do it, like we do it.
Yeah, like in college, I would like had this massive tumbler that I would like go to the like cafeteria and like fill it all the way to the top.
Yeah.
Every day, and then like go to class.
Yeah.
And like drink it throughout the day, and it was like probably like 1.5 liters of coffee or something. It was like, super unsustainable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. Same.
Yeah.
Not so much in college for me. Go a little closer. Go like your hands width away.
Cool.
You can kind of like just keep it down here.
Sweet.
Yeah, that sounds good. Little red buttons pressed. We're rolling. You know how this goes. I'll probably cut some of this out, but we'll just kind of like chat for a little bit and ease into things. What was I talking about? Coffee. I didn't drink that much in college, but when I worked as an engineer in a cubicle at the airplane factory, I drank like a big French press every single day.
Yeah.
And I finally, do you know the Whoop straps?
Yeah.
I wore a Whoop strap for a couple of years and like use it to check out my sleep and stuff. And I don't know how accurate those things are, but I think like at least the relative data is accurate. Mm-hmm. And my deep sleep always sucked and I couldn't figure out why. And then I went off coffee for like a week for some reason and my deep sleep like quadrupled, like overnight, you know? Yeah. And then I kind of titrated coffee back in and learned that I can have like 1 cup in the morning without affecting my sleep. But if I have a French press of coffee, even if it's all before like 10 a.m., it still tanks my deep sleep. So
yeah,
that was the pivot point for me. I don't know if it's not like, you know, some people are like, I went off coffee and like, now I feel amazing and have all this energy. Like, I think I feel the same. I don't really know if it's any different. Mm-hmm. Why did you back off on your coffee intake?
It's probably just all of you just like listen to a podcast where they're like, oh yeah, you know, you're getting super anxious or you like read a book and then talking about how everyone's addicted to caffeine and it's like making everyone super anxious and everyone's super dependent on caffeine. And then you start like thinking about, oh, well, maybe this isn't like a good practice to be drinking like 8 cups of coffee a day. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I don't know. I think it was just like experimenting with what like feels best, like the proper amount to be drinking for me and stuff. Mm-hmm. And it's like come down to like 1 cup a day. And
that's the sweet spot.
Yeah. And then like maybe having like a green tea or like a Yorkshire tea or something like afterwards if I'm like feeling tired, but like not past 2 p.m. because then like you don't sleep as well. So,
yeah. I got you. There's probably something to it. I remember, I think I've told this story on the podcast before, but I remember when I was in college, I was like, at one point I was concerned with my dependence on coffee and just didn't like the idea of being dependent on anything to feel awake and alert. And I told my sister that. I was like, I think I'm gonna let go of my coffee addiction because I don't want to be dependent on coffee. And she just, there was kind of this blank stare and there was a few seconds pause and she was like, why not? Then you just get to have it every day.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, brilliant.
Yeah.
Like, you know, because there's almost this like cultural acceptance of being a total coffee addict. And we give people a lot of slack for needing their coffee. Mm-hmm. Like you can be a total asshole if you haven't had your coffee yet. As long as you're a coffee addict, it's like accepted. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, it's like, I'm not like super into coffee. And you know, people are like really into it and they like have to grind their grounds like every morning and like have all their special things. And I'm not like that, but I still like when I'm talking to someone and they like don't drink coffee, it's like shocking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
And then like it's gotten to the point where like,
what do you do?
Yeah, like what do you do? And like I remember like trying like talking to like big wall, like possible big wall partners and they like don't drink coffee. And I'm like, how is the morning routine going to go? You know, like on the wall. Like, what are we going to do in the morning to like start our day and like, and like get in the zone?
Yeah.
If you don't drink coffee, like you just like wake up and like start racking up.
Right.
That's crazy.
When do you poop? Like that's, you know, how do you get that going?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's so many questions.
I find it interesting how, I wonder if people can relate to this. At this point, they're so connected. It's like even smelling coffee, even the process of making it, my bowels, I'm like, oh, I'm ready to go.
Right.
Just, you know, you get that aroma and you're like, oh, it's like that Pavlovian connection there.
Yeah, I know. I wonder how much of it's just the morning routine too. Like if you like don't have a cup of coffee and you like, because I just feel like I don't know what to do. It's just like the catalyst for the day.
Yeah.
And if I don't have it, then I'm like feeling kind of lost and like the day never even began.
Yeah.
And I wonder how much of it is like just needing that morning ritual. Yeah.
There's
it's
something
kind of
there.
like, yeah.
Are you a ritual person? Do you have morning routines or evening routines or anything?
Yeah. So yeah. I like to stretch before climbing a lot now, and it kind of just like, I think it helps like slow the process into like getting into the day of climbing. And yeah, like coffee, obviously. And then before going to sleep, I like we'll try and like work out sore muscles and stuff with like a ball or like a massage gun or something.
I thought you were just going to leave it I thought you were just going to say work out. Before sleep, I like to work out.
Yeah. I just like to like bust out 100 push-ups before I go to sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get the cortisol up right before you get in bed.
But yeah, and like reading before bed and like, yeah. But I think I used to be more like uptight about it. And if I like didn't get to like wake up and like meditate before coffee and then like drink coffee and then stretch and everything before the day starts, I'm like, oh well, what's the point in even doing the day now?
Today's blown. Yeah, I can relate to that. I my like self-care evolution has been like a total bell curve. You know, it was like zero awareness, doing nothing. That's probably not true, but not doing much, and then like became a monk. Yeah. And then was like, I don't want to be a monk, or it's not healthy to actually be monk-like in today's world, you know, if you want to have a life with friends and things. So now it's back down, maybe somewhere in between, halfway point or something.
I've had the same like trajectory. Because yeah, you're like, don't care about any of it. And you're like, oh, I need to start doing all these things that everyone's recommending me. And like sleeping properly and drinking matcha instead of coffee and meditating for 3 hours and then stretching for 4 and like all this stuff. And then, you know, you get to like a breaking point and there's like no time to think about anything else. And you're like, oh, this is really unsustainable. Yeah. And then you're like, well, maybe I'm just like not going to do any of it.
Did you say fuck it and just wipe the slate clean sort of thing? Because I like that blackboard. We're sitting in my van and there's a blackboard on my wall with, you know, it's disgusting right now and hard to read, but usually it has like goals on it and things like that. Right now it has all my physical therapy exercises from my injury. But there was like a year where the whole blackboard was just like self-care reminders. You know, it was like go on a walk, read a book, do this, do that. And I would feel like a little bit of anxiety every time I glanced at the blackboard. For sure. You know, I'm like, I've only done one of those 10 things today, or I've done none of them, or I want to do them all, but you know, I want to go climbing, or I have to work today. And it can kind of become this weird prison, self-care prison.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I don't know why we're talking about this so much. Coffee.
I don't know. Maybe we were just both into it. You know? But no, I know what you're talking about. Like you just put too many things on the schedule and then it gets too anxiety inducing, and it's no longer self-care. Yeah.
Are you a lists person in general? Do you have written goals and things like that?
I go in and out of like writing stuff down. Like I brought this like journal with me where I like wrote down intentions for our conversation and like,
oh, we should start by
things that we should
I want to hear what's in there. Yeah,
okay.
That'd be interesting.
Let's see.
I have my own list too, but we're kind of, for people listening, we're here in Waco, ran into you did you get here a week ago or so?
I think like 3 weeks ago.
Was it 3 weeks ago?
3.5 weeks ago.
What the fuck?
I know, time flies.
Time warp. Okay. I've spent like half my time at the climbing gym just doing rehab for the last few weeks, so maybe that makes sense. But yeah, I ran into you right after recording a follow-up with Jordan Cannon about Wet Lycra Nightmare, and it was so fun to hear some of your sides of that story and your season in Yosemite, so I want to talk about that in a bit. But yeah, so we talked about doing this, but then it actually came up kind of last minute here because unfortunately you hurt yourself and you're leaving, which makes me sad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know it's a bummer, but I kind of just realized like everyone's getting injured in Waco.
So you're leaving.
It like, and I'm just like a part of that now. Like you tore your bicep, and then my buddy Isaac like popped his like ring finger.
Red
pulley.
Van Isaac?
Yeah. Like
When
a week
did
and a
you
half
do
ago.
that? Oh
or
yeah.
2
Well,
weeks
he's
ago.
already better. He's fine.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like he was like, I ran into him one morning, and
he's like,
yeah.
I've just been rehabbing it 3 times a day,
Yeah.
and now it's better. I'm like,
No,
okay.
Isaac is like, talking about like doing lists and Isaac has like all of his climbing days planned out for like 2 months, and it's really awesome.
I woke up and opened my curtain, and I could see he's like parked right across the road from me, and I could see him out there like training with his wrist wrench in the snow, like at 9 o'clock in the morning. I was like, God, that guy is fucking committed.
Yeah. No, when we like climb together, he'll be like, meet in the parking lot, and I get there like probably an hour after him, and the whole time, like I get to the parking lot, and he's just like busting out like one arm max hangs before we go climbing, and I'm like, oh my God, that's so intense. Yeah.
Yeah, he's got the fire. But I derailed us. So all that to say, like I kind of put together this outline this morning, and have some good stuff in here. But yeah, I would love to hear what is in your notebook. What are your intentions for this conversation?
I guess like I wrote these down because, all of a sudden you can just be like talking about coffee for half an hour.
Yeah.
Not get to talk about like more important things, I guess. But I guess January 24th, Tuesday, Leatherland. Intentions for a conversation with Steven. Continue to be present. Take time to think about your responses and try and drop like insecurities about what all your listeners are going to think about what I'm saying. And then like I have topics that I want to talk about as well.
Okay.
That we don't miss. But
Yeah.
I don't know if I need to read all those now.
Okay. Give me like the quick overview of the topics, and I'll see which ones match up with my list here. I love those intentions, by the way. That's great.
Yeah, for sure. I have, in terms of topics I wanted to talk about, my main climbing partner, Adrian, who we've like grown a ton over the last couple of years together. We've like gone from like just learning how to trad climb to like taking on these big objectives together, and we're like not quite ready, and it's like brought all these really great experiences our way, and it's like been really awesome. So I like want to talk about our relationship and our partnership a bit, because it's like really awesome, and it's like helped us both grow a ton, and we like have had our hardships, and like I don't know, you don't like hear about really awesome climbing partnerships all the time.
Yeah.
And I think like a lot of our close friends in the community like think about us as a pair. And like when one of us is in a climbing area and the other one's not there, they're like, whoa, where's like
Did you guys break up?
yeah, exactly.
What happened?
Yeah, so and we did break up, and then it was like everyone was like, whoa, they broke up, and everyone knew that we were gonna get back together, it's just fate. But yeah, so that was one thing. Talking about ground up experiences versus wrapping in experiences, because I feel like a lot of people are like do one of each, and I've like kind of done both and can appreciate each one from like doing the other. And then Wet Lycra Nightmare, following Psych, and then just like going for objectives when you're like not quite ready, because a lot of like what I think I've done a lot of that, and I think it like trial by fire can be like a really cool way to learn about climbing.
Nice.
And all of my talented, interesting, and motivated friends that I've met along the road and have a ton of appreciation for.
Nice.
Because I think I like sold my truck and moved into the van and hit the road like in COVID, and it was like a really crazy time for everybody. And I just met so many really awesome people that have created this like amazing community for me.
Oh, that's wonderful to hear, man.
Across the U.S. now, so.
Well, we can definitely talk about all of that. I've got most of that on my list, and I'll just try to keep a couple mental notes there, and then we can talk for a while, and then just check in and make sure we didn't miss anything. How about that?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah, it's interesting. Just touching briefly on you and Adrian. So I met you in summer of 2020 in 10 Sleep. I think it was shortly after you had hit the road, right? You were kind of early on in your
that was like week one.
Week one?
Yeah, that was like week one.
Yeah, so it's fun to reconnect with you, and I've just been following your journey on Instagram. over the last couple of years, and you've been killing it. You've just been like tearing it up. And I can't remember actually. I apologize to these two women for not being able to remember who said this, but it was either Amity Warm or it was SJ Sean Jean Lee who said like, you've got to have Sam on the podcast. And I think it was you and Adrian. Like they had climbed with you or next to you or something, and they're like, these two guys, like they're like young and giddy, and they're just stoked, and they just like almost don't even maybe know how hard they're climbing. You know, they're just going after these really big things and pulling it off. So yeah, anyway, I think it'd be really fun to hear how you guys got connected and about your trajectory together. I met Adrian, when was that? I think it was last summer, maybe, in Bend at the circuit, just like one random day. And it does seem like, I'm like, how are these guys just, it's like, from the outside looking in, it's almost like you two have a secret, because everything you try, you seem to just pull it off and excel. And, you know, it's just always these amazing updates of you sending a 514 together in Little Cy, or, you know, sending Golden Gate together ground up or whatever it is. So yeah, that's as good a place as any to kick things off. How did you meet Adrian?
So it was after I met you in 10 Sleep. So I like bounced from 10 Sleep to Indian Creek and then to Vegas. That like first few months on the road. And I met Adrian just like in the craft boulders. Yeah.
Nice.
And we were and at the time, I definitely remember I had just been in Indian Creek, and that was like my first big trad climbing experience, and like went to Zion and like did the Moonlight Buttress. And
did you onsite the Moonlight Buttress?
Yeah.
You're one of those people. I'm like, how do you, like, first season of trad climbing, you go onsite the Moonlight Buttress?
Yeah,
it's
it was
amazing,
like,
dude.
That was crazy because me and my buddy Spencer, who's like right over, he's actually in the campsite next to you.
Oh, really? He's the guy in the Subaru?
Yeah, in the white Subaru.
That guy's,
yeah,
just camping, living in a Subaru in the snow, just keeping it real over there.
Yeah, no, he's like a total undercover crusher, and he's like a good friend of mine. And yeah, we just met like at Battle of the Bulge Buttress in Indian Creek, like trying Ruby's Cafe, this like classic finger crack. And then we decided to go try the Moonlight Buttress, and like I don't think I had done a 512 multi-pitch before, and I had done like 2 512 trad climbs, I think. And we were just like, oh, like let's just go check it out. It's supposed to be ultra classic. And then like I remember the 5.8 and like 5.10 opening pitches feeling like hard.
Yeah,
and I was like,
I've tried it. It's sandy down at the bottom,
super sandy,
and kind of wandery.
Yeah. The first pitch is like 5.8, but super slabby and sandy. And I remember thinking like, oh wow, like we're totally fucked. Like we're gonna really struggle. And we had like no tactics, you know. Like the second was like climbing with the bag with like way too much water. And like I remember like I seconded that chimney pitch, and like I was like, oh, it's a chimney, so I can't have the bag on my back. So I like took an alpine draw, and like extended the bag off my belay loop and climbed the whole pitch like that.
No way, dude. What the fuck?
Yeah. And this guy, Josh McCoy, was like rapping in to practice it, and was like, what the fuck are you doing climbing with the bag like that? Like, y'all are crazy.
Like, I'm on-sighting, bro.
Yeah. But it was like really cool. And yeah, I always thought like what it would be like going back with like proper multi-pitch techniques and like hauling a bag.
You just warm up on it. I mean, this is a tangent. I don't want to, well, whatever. Yeah, I am curious about this. How do you explain that? Like what is it that you think prepared you to be able to do that? Because I've tried Moonlight. I'm not like a very proficient crack climber, especially on sandstone. I haven't done much like splitter crack climbing, but I've done a fair amount of trad climbing, and I tried it for maybe 3 or 4 days with my friend Lizzie Van Patten back in 2020. Mostly supporting her, but just, you know, of course I was curious and trying it myself. And I ended up red pointing like, how many pitches is it?
It's like 5 or 6 pitches of 512, and then like the opening ones.
Yeah.
Maybe 5 pitches of 512.
Okay.
Yeah, like 8 pitches total. 9.
8 pitches total. Yeah, 8 or 9 pitches. I think I red pointed like 5 or 6, like maybe 2 of the 512 pitches. Didn't send the upper enduro corner pitch. Didn't send the weird flare pitch, and like didn't send the 0.5 pitch above that.
Yeah.
Didn't do most of it.
Okay.
I found it really hard. And
Yeah.
I'm just so impressed that you just showed up and crushed it with a bag hanging from your belay loop. What do you think prepared you for that?
I think there's a couple things. One is like having, because I was 19 at the time. Oh no, it was my 20th. It was like the day after my 20th birthday is when we did that. And I started climbing kind of like right before I turned 17 and like mostly sport climbed because that's all that I knew about climbing was sport climbing. It was like the areas around Taos, New Mexico were sport climbing areas. And like the guy that was like teaching me how to climb is his name's Jay and he like runs the guiding service in Taos.
You're from Taos?
I'm from Houston originally.
Okay.
And went to Taos on ski trips growing up, and then went in the summertime. One summer when I was like, right before I turned 17, and like went on an outdoor guided trip, and went back to Houston after that trip and like joined the gym with my sister, and I moved to Taos like 3 months later and finished high school there. So from Texas.
Okay.
So
Got it.
feels good to be back here, in my
Nice.
home state. But so having that like base of sport climbing, and I'd climbed like 13 plus before starting track climbing.
Okay.
But it was like a lot of just like going out to the same crags after class in high school and going climbing. Like I didn't take it too seriously, but I was like really psyched to climb all the time.
Yeah, I mean that all makes sense. I think in 10 Sleep when I met you, right after I met you, you sent Galactic Emperor, right? Okay,
Yeah.
which is what a 14A, 13D, or 14A,
Yeah,
whatever
I
people
think-
call that thing.
Yeah, I think at the
Hard.
time I was like, oh yeah, 14A.
Yeah.
And now having climbed a couple, I'm like, okay, maybe.
And I'm not trying.
Yeah.
I have no perspective on it. I've never tried it, but I just have heard mixed things. So,
But I'd climbed that right before going to Indian Creek. And then was just epicking in Indian Creek to like get up 510s. And I just like could not really figure out hand jamming properly at first and was really struggling.
yeah,
And but then going to Moonlight, I think it was like having that physical strength from sport climbing and then just being like really naive about placing gear and being like really, really psyched and like not really thinking about like gear holding or stuff like that. And like willing to like run it out and like do anything to send the pitch, you know? And that lasted for quite a while. And I think that helped with like some of those bigger gear ascents. And Moonlight in particular is like really sporty. It's like really lie-backy and
yeah.
yeah.
As far as split or crack climbing, it is very sporty, but the thing is, like, I mean, I know Alex Honnold soloed it, but it's not easy or secure at all. Like, it's pretty goddamn hard.
That's
so impressive,
I
man.
don't think that'll ever be understood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You kind of, I mean, it's amazing, but it kind of hits differently when you're up there trying those pitches, especially for me. I mean, I'm bad at straight and crack climbing, but like the 0.5 pitches, they just feel so rattly and insecure, and the feet are so bad. You're almost like crack campusing, if that's a thing.
Yeah. I think he has really big. He has big fingers.
Yeah.
I think he's just jamming the 0.5s. Yeah. We can just tell ourselves that.
It was, soft. 12 minus for him.
Yeah. It's just soft for him.
We were talking about Adrian though, or we were making our way there. So I'm sorry, when did you meet Adrian?
So yeah, had that trip to Indian Creek and Zion, and then went home for the holidays, and then went to Vegas. And at the time, I was like getting more psyched on like multi-pitch climbing and hard track climbing, and knew I needed a partner, and knew I didn't really have anyone that around me that was like really psyched to do that. And it seemed like, you know, when you're trying to go climb some like 513 multi-pitch, you like need a psyched partner. And I was just like bouldering in the craft boulders because that's like what all my friends were doing. And Adrian just like walks up to this boulder and he's like, it's like the monkey bar boulder. Do you know that one? Yeah. So we were like trying that like V6 on that like classic V6 monkey director, monkey bar or whatever. And we like started chatting, and he had like just dropped out of college and was like really psyched on just like, he was just like living in his Highlander and like was like totally, he was like completely on the Brad Gobright program of like eating pastries and like climbing every day and never resting. And like, it was just like really just like living the dream, you know? And we like start talking, and he's from Washington, and he was like thinking about going back to school and was like looking at, so I guess he hadn't just dropped out. He had been out for a little bit. But he was thinking about going back to school. And I was at OSU Cascades in Bend, and he was like psyched on Bed and psyched on Smith Rock. So that like, he was like, oh, I'm thinking about going there. I'm like, oh, you totally should. And I was like telling him about the school. And then he was like, oh, like, what are you doing tomorrow? And I was like, oh, I want to go try this like Desert Gold, this like 513 roof crack, like out in Black Velvet Canyon. He was like, oh, I really want to try that too. And I was like, no way. That is like so perfect. And then like, so we kind of like leave that day, and we meet up in the morning and we go try this like 513 crack. And like, I had never tried a 513 trad climb before. And, I don't think Adrian had either. Maybe he had an Indian Creek, but, and there's like 2 different ways to get up to it. It's like a second pitch, and there's this like really casual, like 5'8" hand crack. And then there's like this 5'11" dihedral. And Adrian was like, oh, I'll take the first pitch and we can do the dihedral. Like, it will be a better warm up. And I was like, oh yeah, cool. And, he like starts up it, and it's like super run out and like really chossy. Oh. And he's like, there's like luckily a bolt in the middle, and he like clips this bolt and then just has to like run it to like kind of get like through the crux and up to the top. And I'm like following this pitch on top rope, and I'm just like doing the part that he did, like super run out. And I'm like, oh my God, this guy's a total badass. Like, there's no way I would have committed to doing this pitch. Like, this is so sketchy. And I was like, well, I'm like totally out of this guy's league, you know, or he's out of my league. And then we like didn't quite, and then we had like a super fun day working the Desert Gold. It's like this classic crack. And yeah, it kind of all started there. And then like the next week we went and tried Jetstream, which is this like kind of heads up 513 multi-pitch in Vegas, and it's like super classic, and had a total epic of like starting like pre-dawn and getting super lost on the approach, and then like projecting the crux pitch, which is like the second pitch, for like 4 hours, and then finally sending, and then like we're like, oh, I guess we'll just keep going, and there's like 6 more pitches, and they're like all 512, and get to the top and like fall off the last move, the last 12-8 pitch at like midnight, and then I'm like, okay, fuck it, like I'm not sending, you know.
Oh man.
We wrap, and yeah, those were like our first 2 days climbing together.
That's so epic. I mean, the thing that makes your partnership so unique, looking at it from the outside, from my perspective, you know, it's like one thing to find another person who wants to go project the 513 crack, or like go to Yosemite and try Golden Gate ground up or some of these things. Like, you know, that's a rare person. Those people are out there, but you know, it's a special thing to find that person that can go do those things with you. But you guys seem like uncannily aligned in your ability to do everything and your desire to do everything. Like, I was, you know, this morning I was scrolling back through your last year of Instagram posts and updates and stuff, and it was just kind of like this funny looping carousel experience where it was like, oh, like double digit boulder problem, oh, 514 sport route, oh, like hard big wall or trad thing, oh, another hard boulder problem, just kind of looped. And that's incredibly rare, you know, let alone that you guys are around the same age and have the same lifestyle right now. It's just, I don't know if that's something that's become more normal, like people that can climb everything at that kind of level or are trying to do that. But that seems, I haven't met very many of those people, you know, like you're down here in Waco and you don't really think of yourself as a boulderer. And just from like talking to Forrest and hearing what you've been trying and stuff, I'm like, well, you're already better at it than me. So that's pretty, pretty interesting. Like, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And then you spend most of your,
yeah.
You spend so much of your time in Yosemite trying big walls. What's the common ingredient there for the two of you? Is it just like chasing the weather and doing whatever's best that season? Or I don't really have a fully formed question here, but
yeah, no, that's fine.
But that's a unique combo. Why is it that you two are so well aligned?
I think I can answer both parts of that question.
There was only 2 parts. That was like a 7.
Well, it's kind of like,
so
how are we switching between the disciplines, and then how are we switching between the disciplines, and then how are we like both aligned, like perfectly sending the exact
Very
same
succinct,
things.
thank you.
We're like sending the same stuff at the same time, and we're like the same age. No, it's like super special, and that's why I wanted to like talk about it, because it's like I'm just like so appreciative of it.
Yeah,
it's like it's so cool to have someone that's like equally psyched, that's your age, and you can like really relate on that level, and that's just like psyched on the same objectives. And that's like another piece of the puzzle that's super important. And that creates like a super healthy competition for us.
Yeah.
Like, it's like definitely, like, we don't really use the word competitive, or that we're like competing against each other. But like when you're up on Golden Gate and your partner sins, and it's like your partner that you do everything with, and that you're like the same age and go to the same school and like have all these similarities, you're like, oh, well, you know, I need to do it now. And you usually do it. It's amazing. It's like I've seen Adrian like so far from sending a pitch.
Yeah.
And then I go up and do it, and he just ties in and does it. It's like incredible. I'm like, holy shit. I was like, it's so crazy.
Why is that? Is it a self-belief thing? Is it like, well, I know this guy's climbing. I know that we've done so many of the same things. He just did it, therefore I can too. Or is it something else?
I think it's like having that just like competitive nature. Like we both grew up playing sports and being like athletes.
What did you do
competing
before climbing?
I guess like I played like all the sports growing up. Like I played baseball and soccer and lacrosse and ran cross country, and like I wasn't like super good at much of it. I was like a competitive skateboarder.
Okay.
But that didn't like bring out I think that brought out more of like the competitive or the healthy competition side of like partnership. Because when you're like having like a really good session with your friends and you're all skating the same bowl, it's like you all have different styles and like go-to tricks and all these things, but you're all throwing down, and that's what's like most important.
You're like all feeding off the energy.
Yeah, and you're totally like feeding off the energy of the session, and it like makes you go way harder than you would if you were like by yourself. So I think I kind of like learned how to like pick up, or I just really enjoy that like feeding off each other's energy aspect of it, and I think that plays into it. And then also just being like, I know that we have similar strengths, then like if he did it, I should be able to do it, and since he did it, I have to do it, because
because we got to keep going upward.
Because we got to keep going, and
you don't want to be in a KJ situation.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, we haven't had that yet, but no, I think it's powerful though. It's a powerful thing. It's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I want to eventually loop back to your spring season, but let's keep going down this bouldering, sport climbing, trad climbing combo rabbit hole for a little bit, because I do have some questions about it. You know, just looking back at your Instagram this morning, I was like, God, you're so good at everything. Like you're one of those like really, really accomplished all-rounders. You know, it was like, oh, he did this like badass highball V11 in Roy that Keenan put up. Like that thing looks so intimidating and so cool. And then, oh my God, like El Nino and, you know, all the stuff you did at Littleside this summer. I have a few questions here. Do you think it's been helpful to do as much different climbing as you do? Or would you be even better at, let's say, trad climbing if you just focused on that year round? Do you think there's like some secret sauce in combining all the different things, or?
I think for big wall climbing, it's much better to be like a talented boulderer and sport climber and like understand those disciplines, because that's like, you know, once you learn how to place gear and trust it, like that's just kind of like a skill that you can maintain, like trusting it and being comfortable with it and like problem solving quickly is something that might take time to get used to again. And that's why like when you're like going to the valley after bouldering for a while or sport climbing for a while, it'll be good to like do a couple intro routes to like just kind of like get the feel of like, oh yeah, my finger's in this size crack, I'm going to place this piece, and like it's totally fine. Like it's bomber granite and a crack. It's going to stay. And like, you know, sending hard climbs is all about like reducing hesitation. And it's like, well, if you can reduce as much hesitation as possible, like on those hard trad pitches, like you'll have a much better chance of sending it. And so that's important. But I don't think that big wall climbing is like good for sport climbing and bouldering. Yeah. Except that when you get off of like a 7-day ground up ascent of some big wall and you were like soaking wet half the time and you were like really cold and your feet hurt and like your hips are bruised from your harness, you really want to go bouldering. And it's really, really fun. And you like really appreciate it. So I think that might be like the good part.
It puts like the hurting skin into perspective, right?
Yeah.
Like that's like kind of the worst thing that boulders have to complain about. Maybe like hauling crash pads around on long hikes or approaches or something. But
hiking crash pads is kind of heinous.
It is,
heavy.
but the bouldering experience overall is pretty cush. Yeah, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
Is there a method to the madness? Because it seems like you know, looking back at your travels over the last 2.5 years since I met you, seems like you've kind of bounced all over the place. Is there a strategy there, or is it just following inspiration? Like, how would you? How do you think about where you go next? And
I think in the beginning it was kind of like, oh, you need to hit these classic areas. And I remember like wanting to learn more about each discipline too. I was like, oh, I'm going to go to Indian Creek, learn about track climbing, then go to the buttermilks and like boulder. And now it's more so like following good weather is like really important, obviously. So that's like a factor. And then also like a huge factor is like where your friends at and your people at. And like that social aspect of like living on the road is like so important. So like, you know, if you're juggling 2 areas, but 3 of your best friends are going to be in an area, like you're probably going to go there. Because like 1, you'll have partners. 2, like it's just good for the soul, you know? So, and like, it's really important to put a lot into your climbing and focus on it, but like cultivating long-term relationships then is like also really important for just like well-being. So like, and I really think it all works together so well because it's like, for me at least, like I go to Yosemite, I'm like really focused on goals when I'm there, and I'm like trying to get really good sleep and like rest and like not do too much social stuff so I can like really focus on these big wall objectives. And then after a month and a half there, I'm like content with what I just did usually, like if I'm successful or not. And then I'm like, oh, well, you know, now I'll probably go to like rifle and go hang out with my friends. And when you're like sport climbing and you can be like getting all those physical gains and like cultivating psych for other objectives while like having more time with like the people you're around because you're like not on the wall for 7 days or like hauling or hiking loads. So I think, yeah, the formula is like pretty like intuitive and it works out well.
Yeah.
Just everything I'm trying to accomplish. So
yeah. That's cool. I mean, it makes sense. And it's a theme on the podcast that, you know, if you want to be a good big wall climber, eventually, you know, once you've learned the logistics, once you've dialed in your logistics for hauling and gotten efficient and you trust the gear and all that stuff and, you know, gotten comfortable on the slippery granite, it is about being able to do like hard boulder problems way off the deck and do a lot of them in a day. And it becomes way more similar to bouldering and sport climbing. So that's a theme. And then you said big wall climbing doesn't feed back into the other stuff. So I'm curious, when you think about where you're headed in the long term with your climbing, what inspires you the most? Is it ultimately those big objectives in Yosemite or more of a combination of things?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, in the long term, like definitely the like single pitch hard trad climbs and the like big wall free climbs like around the world are the most inspiring to me. And I guess the way I'm like, I love all parts of climbing and I really enjoy all disciplines. And I think it's like a great way of maintaining psych, like year round. And, but when I like read an article about like a new boulder like a new 9A boulder that was done, or some like, you know, Megos doing some new 15C. I'm like, okay, that's like really awesome, and those guys are rad. But I don't like have this like urge to like want to go out and do it, you know. And I think maybe some of that is like, oh, those guys have been like climbing since they were like 5, and like can do like, you know, mono 1-arm pull-ups, and there's just no way that like why would I even like aspire? But and that's probably not like the best mindset to have. And like, I'm sure lots of people can do those things, but when I see like read articles and watch movies of like Nico Fabres and Sean Villanueva like out putting up first ascents in like Baffin Island, or like in the Torre del Paine range, and like my buddy Tyler just went out to the Torre Catedral and like did the second ascent of the South African route, and like that's super inspiring, and that's like super rad, and
feels more relatable maybe.
Yeah,
you're like, I could actually aspire to do that, whereas
totally
there's no way I'm gonna work my way up to 15C.
Yeah,
because I didn't start climbing as a fetus.
Yeah, I think there's like in another world where I'm like more psyched on trying to go climb 15C in Spain, but I think like, you know, in this world I'm more psyched on going out and doing like some big wall first ascent in like Patagonia or Baffin Island, and hopefully like, you know, at the moment I like have those aspirations, and it feels hard to like work towards them because I don't know that many people that are psyched to go do those things, and the ones that are close by and easier are like in Yosemite and in Zion and in Squamish and stuff like that, and I'm really like equally psyched on those as well. But definitely like the stuff that I dream of is like the stuff that like Nico and Sean are doing. It's like super cool. And I think like one of my big fears in climbing is like getting too into like, I'm like, oh, well, like I was in the valley this spring or last spring, and Seb Berth, we were like hanging out at this party, and he was like, oh, Sam, you cannot come back to the valley until you climb 14C, or like AC+. And I was like, oh, fuck. Okay, like maybe he's right. And then I get like too into that, and then I like focus on sport climbing for 5 years, and then I like never get to go do fun adventures, you know?
Wait, why? What's the premise of his argument there?
He's like, Sam, you're like trying all these big walls that are like almost at your physical limit.
Okay.
And you're like not saving any of them for the on-site. And you know, he's like he's like a 515 climber, so he's like, yeah, he's like, you're spending like 7 days on El Nino. I'm just gonna go on site in a day. He's like, why don't you just do that also? I'm like, okay, whatever.
Is he trying the Dawn Wall at this point?
Yeah, he was trying the Dawn Wall.
Yeah,
he like didn't do the Dawn Wall, so he was like, oh, Sam and Tavish just like tried El Nino. Like, I'm just gonna go on site in a day.
God damn.
And he basically did it. He like fell on the last hard pitch.
Damn. Wow.
Yeah. But like, hearing that, I'll like get too psyched on sport climbing, and then never get to like go and sail to Baffin Island and climb big walls and have those like really meaningful lifetime climbing experiences. Because I love sport climbing, but like I don't have a ton of like I do want to have a lot of like rich stories when my climbing life like is over, and like I love hanging out with my friends at the Sport Crag and like trying hard on projects. I just don't have a ton of like great stories. But like, you know, me and Adrian like suffering up Freerider for the first time and like using dynamic ropes to haul and not having a tagline, and like those are all like really great stories, you know.
Yeah. Phones
dying and dropping topos, and it's like it's fun to look back on, and you learn a lot. So yeah.
Well, that's as good a lead-in as I could have asked for. Let's talk more about your 2022 spring season in Yosemite. I almost said 2020 because I don't know what year it is apparently because of the COVID time warp. But yeah, it was really fun. So yeah, I've interviewed Jordan a couple times now, Jordan Cannon, for people listening, and he's of course like all in on, or at least has been, you know, all in on Yosemite and just kind of the legacy of Yosemite and these big objectives and doing Golden Gate in a day and doing these big link-ups and things. And I just interviewed him about Wet Lycra Nightmare, that 9-pitch 13D on Leaning Tower. And, you know, I think of Jordan as someone who's become like a specialist, really dialed at that style. And then he kind of makes you sound like you're a level up on him and just kind of crushing these things that he's been working really hard for. And, you know, you guys tried Wet Lycra Nightmare together in the spring, and then it got too hot and he couldn't send, but you squeaked it out. And I was like, damn, I kind of had this image of you of like, Sam's the guy that just shows up and executes everything, just gets it done like flawlessly. And then it was fun to catch up with you a couple weeks ago and hear your version, your side of the story. And it sounded like that season was kind of a shit show in a few ways.
Yeah. That was a great season though. That was like really fun. Like did a ton of, like I showed up and I think early May, or no, early April. Yeah.
Okay.
April, I was there like April, May. And my buddy Tavish, he's like a total dark horse bone crusher. He's like a super impressive climber. We were like getting out a bunch, and we did this like thing on the Fifi Buttress called like Final Frontier, and that thing's like super classic. And we were doing a bunch of bouldering, and the weather was like super good, and we were just like hanging out by the river all morning. And then like once we started like prepping for El Nino, we were like hanging out by the river all morning, and it like goes in the shade at like 3. So we would just like hang out and tan, and then we'd like hike up there and go try these like heinous 513 slab pitches on like the first 3 pitches of El Nino. And so like that was a super fun season. And then Jordan, like I think there was like some article written that said I wanted to try El Nino and Wet Lycra. And I like didn't really remember saying that. And I was like, oh my God, this dude's like pre-spraying about my projects and I'm not even gonna try them because I'm like not there yet at all. And I remember like Jordan being like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go try. We hadn't like climbed together really. And we had just bouldered, like, what am I saying? He had like asked me to climb like before going to Yosemite that year to like see if he wanted to climb with me. He was like testing me probably to be a partner.
Yeah.
And he wanted to try Wet Lycra, and I'm like, oh well, like I'll probably just go belay and check it out, and it'll be like a multi-season thing because it's like 13D big wall, like, or like pseudo big wall. Really, it's not that big, but
well, like
well, yeah,
900 feet, you know,
or I guess
proper.
like it's really big, but you just like don't climb that much.
Okay.
Because
the first 2 pitches are the aid pitches.
Yeah, when you're looking at the wall, the first like 300 feet is like you don't even climb it because you like walk this ledge.
Okay.
Like, and then once you're off that ledge, you just aid climb for 200 feet. So you're starting like 500 feet off the deck or something.
Okay.
And then it's like, you know, I don't know how tall it is exactly, like 1,400 feet or something. So you're climbing like 1,000 feet, which is like a lot, but it's like not that much, I guess. But what was I saying? Yeah. So I was like, oh, I'll go like belay Jordan, and I'm sure he's like really psyched, and he needed a partner. And I get down off of El Nino, and I'm like really worked. And that was like
after sending?
I didn't send it.
Oh, you didn't send it?
Yeah, this is actually good. We can talk about how, because I don't show up and do stuff flawlessly. I actually had like, didn't send El Nino because the last pitch was like soaking wet.
Oh shit.
It was like, I was like scraping out like, not like sludge, but like, I mean, the rock was like covered in moss from the waterfall.
Oh man.
I was like scraping that off with a brush. But there is this like 13 plus 14 minus variation you can take there. That was like the original way that broke. So that's what Seb did when he onsighted it. But get down off of that after like 7 days, and we weathered out like a storm on that. And that was like first El Cap storm. Me and Tavish and our buddy Scott Eubank, he went up there to take photos, and it like our portaledge fly was like totally not waterproof. We like borrowed it from the guidebook author in Yosemite, and like the storm hits, and we like set up the portaledge fly, and it like, I mean, it was better than like cotton, but like it was like just like we could just like see it dripping through, and like the thing was like soaked. I was like, is this what portaledge flies do? Like, this is heinous. And we were just soaking wet, like soaked to the bone.
Oh,
and
man.
Like our Scott like bailed, and he gave us this like little camera to film ourselves, Tavish and I, and the camera broke. Like it seeped. It got so wet, it like seeped through the case, and then like we couldn't even use it. We're like, we should just toss this. But I get down off El Nino, and Jordan's all psyched, and he already has it like the first couple pitches fixed. And he's like, yeah, let's go up there. And I'm like super worked, and it snows, like it's snowing this day. And he's like, no, we'll go up. It'll be sick. We'll go try the crux pitch. You'll get psyched. And
and the approach is heinous, right?
Yeah, well, it's not. It's actually nice, like when it's not snowing.
Right.
But when it's like snowing, it's like a talus field, and you're like walking up these like big boulders, slabs, things, and so we're like walking up that in the snow, and we get up there, and Jordan's like first roped up pitch, he like falls into that hole and like splits his shin open. And we just like go, then we like wrap, and I like call my buddy Jack, and I'm like, all right, Jack, come, like we need to like hike Jordan out of here, you know?
Yeah.
Like, his leg is like open, and his like bones are sticking out.
He was like picking little fragments of bone, like shin bone, out of his leg.
Yeah. So that was like a great start to the Wet Lycra experience, like super exciting. And then, so that happens. We like go to the ER. Jordan's out. And then once Jordan's back in, we're like, oh, we'll go climb the Salathe in a day, like nose in a day style.
Meaning Jordan, like French free?
Yeah, like French fraying and not free climbing, everything. And we just do that. I think we just like kind of wanted to do it, I guess. I don't know. I think Jordan was maybe prepping for some like double in a day something for his birthday or something. And so we go and do that, and we're like on the Salathe head wall. Things are going pretty well. And our like friend Victoria came in to shoot photos, and he just like, I get up to an anchor, and he's like short fixed, self-belaying on like the second pitch of the head wall. And he, right as I like put him on belay on my gree and I'm clipping him to the anchor, he like falls. He like pulls the cam.
Oh fuck! And he's like aid self-belaying.
Yeah, he's like short fixed, but he's belaying himself. So like PDL is when you like short fix, but you like don't have a belay on, and you just like fall to the end of your rope. Yeah. But he like has a gree.
PDL, what does that stand for?
Pakistani death loop.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know why it's called that.
Okay.
But you just like, but he's like on belay.
He's got a gree.
Self belay.
Yeah.
And he falls, and he's like not clipped to anything until me, and I like don't get the rope clipped to the anchor in time, and it like wraps around my hand, and he just takes this like, I mean, it was kind of big. It might have been like 50 feet or so. He takes this like big fall, and it like wraps around my hand, and like, my hand like takes the fall, and he like whips straight onto my belay loop.
Oh my!
And it was like super intense, and I was like, whoa, like God, Jordan's sketchy. And then, no, not actually, but he like takes this big fall, and my hand is so fucked that I like can't even like close it.
Like the rope, like his lead line, like basically lassos your hand, and that's what keeps him from falling. What? To his death, or just even farther?
No, he was on my gree.
Okay.
Yeah. So it like lassos and like it like pops off my hand once he like fully weights it. But yeah, it takes that big whip, and then he just like pulls back up
onto you.
Yeah, he like factor two onto me.
Fuck.
So yeah, don't do that, listeners. It's not solid. But then he like pulls back up and like climbs to the top of the pitch, and Victoria was like, "Fuck, guys!" Like. She got up there and she was all psyched. She had like just wrapped in for the first time. She was like getting these sick photos, and she's like, "This is awesome." And then Jordan takes this huge whipper. Like, we thought my hand was broken for sure. Like, it was like super swollen, and I like couldn't move it. And we just have to like jug Victoria's lines out, because I was like, I don't give a shit, whatever. And we hiked down, and we knew the Belgians were like throwing this party like up on top of the rostrum, because they were heading out of town to sail for 3 months back to Europe. And so we're like, oh yeah, well, we got to go party. And then we like, well, no, that's not totally true. We go to, Jordan's friend is like a doctor, and we go to her house, and she's like, yeah, just come in for x-rays in the morning. Like, your hand's probably broken, whatever. Like, we can't do anything now. And we go to the party and like put it up in a sling, and we like party all night. And that's when I'm talking to like Seb Barrett, and he's like, yeah, you got to climb 14C before you come back to the valley. Like, you're totally blowing it. And he was also like, oh yes, I was going to try to do this, like do El Cap a day ascent, and I was going to recruit you, but you're obviously fucked. And I was like, okay. I was like, wow, damn, that's a bummer. Yeah. He was like, yeah, your hand's like totally broken for sure. It was like the size of like a balloon at this point. And then luckily it wasn't broken. Like, I went in for x-rays the next day, and they were like, yeah, no, you're fine. And I'm like, I'm fine. They were like, it was just like soft tissue damage, like really bad.
Wow.
And my girlfriend was going to UCLA, so I like drove to LA and hung out for 5 days, and then came back. And I think did Wet Lycra like the week after that or something.
What's up with that? That's insane. Because I'm like right and I'm wrong, Like I'm hearing this whole story, and I guess my point earlier was like, from the outside, it just seems like you're the guy who shows up and just smashes things and everything goes off without a hitch. And then I hear your version in some of these stories a couple weeks ago, and I'm like, oh, that's right. Like, don't oversimplify things. Like, this guy's working for it just like anyone else. He's struggling. He's putting the work in. He's epicing. He's having these crazy things happen, fluke accidents, whatever. But then, yeah, you almost break your hand. You've had like one snowy day on the route, and then you come back and send it in a week. Like, and it's like one of the hardest things you've ever done. Like, how does that all fit together? I'm
trying to think of how many days I had on it before I hurt my hand. It might have been like 4 or 3.
Okay.
Like, I think there was like a little bit of time like that we worked on it before, like in between Jordan's leg feeling better and me hurting my hand. I think we got like 3 extra days on it or something. Like, I think I basically had, there's 513 pitches or 6. I think there's 5. And I like had a micro traction day for each. And then I think I had 1 extra day or something, or 2 extra days. So I think I had like 6 or 7 days on the route. So I didn't just like show up and hike it. That's by any means. But yeah, I mean, Wet Lycra Nightmare was just kind of weird. I didn't really struggle with the crux too much, which was, I think, like very, very surprising. Because Jordan was like, oh yeah, Alex was like, yeah, if you go up there, like just work on the crux pitch because it's like 13D and everything else is 13A. And if you can do that pitch, you can do everything else, no problem.
Honnold.
Yeah. And then I like go up and I think I was able to like I went up and Jordan had the draws hung. He was like really good at getting stuff like fully dialed. So there's like draws hanging all the way down the route, and like he's like, he likes that a lot, which is like cool. It makes for like a different type of big wallowing experience that's like pretty casual and fun. And as compared to like going up El Niño in a storm, it's like different. And then I think he like gives me the beta, and I like go up and touch the holds, and then I was able to like do it on my first try.
Damn.
And it's like fully bolted, and it's really short, and you kind of like,
wow.
But it's super cool because you're like that jug rail that you were seeing in the photos is like wrapper jugs. You can like superhero clip with your feet off.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's super cool. Okay. And then it's like 1 bolt of like pretty hard climbing, but
it's kind of just a boulder problem.
Yeah.
Not just, but it's essentially
it's actually a little bit
problem.
different because right off of that, it's like 12 plus stemming, which is like a 12 plus stemming boulder, basically. And then you like get a rest, and then you do like I do like a sideways dyno at the end. That's like not super hard, but it's still like, you're like, you're all points off, so it's like you might fall.
Yeah. That's so epic.
But yeah,
you're like 600 feet off the ground doing a sideways dyno.
Yeah, no, you're probably like more than 600 at that point.
That's so sick.
Yeah, it's super cool. And there's like a photo of Eric Bissell doing that jump. I bet you could find it somewhere. But yeah, no, Wet Lycra was that one. It just took less time than I thought. I guess I don't know. I think it suited me well. Like I've like changed a bit as a climber in the last, like I've like gained more muscle since I like started climbing. I like climbing on like bigger holds now. It's like more of my style than like, because I went to school and was climbing at Smith Rock and like loved the like micro crimping on vertical faces, and now I just like, I don't know, I hate like painful holds. And like the Wet Lycra crux is like super comfy holds, and like they're like slopey crimps and jugs, and
nice.
So it's like easy to work, and
It is.
I don't know.
No, you're fine. It's interesting. I'm just thinking, I'm kind of smiling over here because that just sounds so similar to my Smith Rock, trajectory, I suppose. Like there's this, I love Smith so deeply, and I have so many memories there, and it taught me so much, but there was kind of this inherent, I don't know, like innocence, or what's the word I'm looking for? Like you just don't know any better. Like I loved Smith because I hadn't traveled to Waco, I loved Smith because I hadn't spent much time in Rifle or in Rocky Mountain. And then you hit the road and you start traveling, and at least for me, like start climbing on steeper, hard things with good holds, and like being able to use my muscles more, and like my body, allowing my body to change, and it just feels so much more fun. And as much as I love Smith and appreciate it, I'm like, I'm not sure if this is ever going to go full circle, like that might have been my chapter where I just loved it for what it was, and ignorance. Like I think like ignorance is bliss sort of thing, it's like, I just didn't really know how fun hard climbing could be, I think, to some extent.
Yeah. But Smith is funny like that because it's surprising how quickly you can be convinced to go back I think.
Okay.
Like, because I like when I left Smith, I'm like, yeah, I'm never going back. Like, it's so greasy, like in the sun, and everything's so like heinous and height dependent. Because it's like,
Yeah.
like, but then Adrian's there right now, and he's like, yeah, dude, they just opened the new board climbing gym in Bend. It's so cool. It's just like kilter boards, and then like, yeah, Smith is so great. And you're like, yeah, maybe Smith is great. Like, and then you like go for 2 days, and you're like, no, it's not.
Yeah, you go try your project and your skin's fucked for like a week and you're like, oh, right.
And you're like, oh yeah, World Wall. That's great. Yeah.
World Wall. Yeah, your passion for World Wall. I don't know whether we should talk about that or not.
We probably shouldn't because the locals will get so pissed.
Yeah, I know. The ledge can only handle so much traffic. Yeah. And we will be right back. This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. If you've been listening to this podcast for a while, you'll know that it's not just about climbing. It's also about getting to know people and learning from them. And it's about getting to know ourselves, because until we do that, it's really hard to know how to get where we want to go in life or romantic relationships or climbing or anything. Therapy is all about deepening your self-awareness and understanding, because sometimes we don't know what we want or why we react the way that we do until we talk through things. BetterHelp connects you with a licensed therapist who can take you on that journey of self-discovery from wherever you are. I go to therapy twice a month, and it's awesome. It's just nice to talk to somebody whose job it is to really listen no matter what you're dealing with. If you're having a hard time or just want a professional to help you become the best version of yourself, then therapy is going to be awesome for you. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. That's what I use. It's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. You just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists anytime for no additional charge and without any awkwardness. It's super easy. Discover your potential with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/nugget today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/nugget. And now back to the show. Okay, this I'm putting you on the spot, but I really want to ask this question and just see if anything fruitful comes out of this question. And again, this goes back to just kind of glancing through your last year of accomplishments and being fascinated that they're just so all over the place, like the balance of bouldering and sport climbing and big wall. Can you name one lesson you've learned from a hard boulder, a hard sport route, and a hard trad route or big wall that you've done in the last year? We can kind of go through one at a time. Let's start with whichever one comes to mind first. But I just think it'd be interesting to hear like what lessons or memories really stand out from each of the three different disciplines.
Okay. The bouldering one seems like actually really like the easiest one. Maybe. Okay. Maybe because I boulder the least.
Fewer experiences to pick from.
Yeah. God, bouldering is so fun though. But one thing that I think is really cool about bouldering is how like mindful and patient boulderers are. And it's like, and I think I'm going to like really try and apply that to my other disciplines. Because it's like, Forrest, he he warms up super slow. And then he's like, before he pulls on, he's like touching every hold and like seeing where his thumb goes, where his thumb goes, and like all these things. And like all the good tactician boulderers are doing that. And like they're waiting for the, like, sport climbers do it too, but it's like less noticeable, Yeah. Maybe because they're up on the wall and you like can't see it happening. I don't know if you know my buddy Hunter Murray. He's he's like probably one of the better sport climbers I know that does this. And it's annoying because he's up on the wall for 2.5 hours and you're like, dude, just like get the beta. But then he like makes it look so casual and it's like awesome.
Right.
But in bouldering, like learning to like sit at the Makita for like 5 minutes and like harness all your psych before you get on, and learning about the conditions on the just like
the level of detail.
Yeah, what it's more like is like you're at the boulder for 2 hours and you only try it like 6 times, like once every 20 minutes, and it's like, I think you can learn a lot from like that flow of a session, and like it's so like calculated, and there's like a lot of intent, so I think that's really cool. And I've learned that on like all of Like I just did that thing One Eyed Clown in Roy. It's like a V10. And that one was like
It looks
physically.
it looks sick.
Yeah, that one's incredibly good. And that one was like physically harder for me than Earn Your Stripes. So
it reminds me, it's like a V10 version of what's that, like V15 or 16 highball and rock lens that Nolly did?
Oh, the
Living Large.
Living Large, yeah.
Anyway, yeah, it looks like that. It looks aesthetically kind of similar. It looks so cool.
No, yeah, it's like probably one of the coolest boulders in Roy. And yeah, it's such a great area too. And yeah, just kind of like all the, like I don't feel like I'm that much stronger on boulders, but I'm like way more like becoming more of like a tactical boulderer. And that's what's making like the biggest difference is like, because I think I used to try harder on boulders. You know, I would just like rapid fire V7s and 8s for like 3 hours and then like eventually send. And I'd be like, that was the hardest boulder I've ever done. Yeah. And that was like the first couple years of like bouldering trips. And that's like changed now. Where I'm like perfectly sanded before every go, and it's like a totally different thing. But I think like just that mindset can really help. Like I think it'll help a ton. Well, you know, it's a double-edged sword because like when you're on OCAP and you're like at some boulder problem pitch, which is a ton of the crux pitches, they're just like little boulders. You like need to figure it out quick, and you gotta like find something that'll work and then just throw down and then do it. And like me and Adrian are like good at that, and I have a lot of friends that I think are like great climbers and good big wall climbers, and they like will struggle to find that thing that works on that crux pitch. And then you kind of just, sometimes it's good to just like double down, even though if it's not the best beta, and you just like find it works, and then you try as hard as you can, and then it's over, and then it's like it doesn't matter if it was the best beta or not.
I mean, I think that's kind of like, that skill is kind of like a core skill of red pointing, right? It's like it's like the two different extremes of that. You know, it's like if it's the hardest thing you've ever done, whether it's a boulder or on a rope, and you're putting like 50 tries or 100 tries into it, it's that process of making every single detail intentional, like perfecting everything. But then on the flip side, like the second go or the really quick red pointing skill of like just find something that works and being able to anticipate your level of fatigue when you get to the crux and like whether or not that method is going to work with that fatigue. Like that's a totally different skill, and it's like equally important, I think.
Yeah. So I think it could be hard, like taking that really long mindful bouldering session and like applying it to like, you know, like magic mushroom or something up on El Cap. But like I'm sure like parts of it will transfer. And then sport climbing, good sport. I mean, I have to pick a world wall climb that I did. Yeah. I guess I did Chicxulub.
Okay.
Which is like this direct version of Porn Star, which is
like a Drew Ruwana link up or something.
Yeah, I think so. He probably did it when he was like 8. Yeah, no, he did because he like.
I think Eric bolted it maybe.
Yeah, because Drew did it, and at the time he was really into dinosaurs, you know, because he like just learned to read, and he like. So he like was really into dinosaurs, and like Chicxulub, I think is like the name of the crater that like killed all the dinosaurs.
Okay.
So he's like, yeah, boom, Chicxulub. So yeah, like do that, and it's like you're doing this like V7, 8 crimp boulder like right until all the crux climbing on Porn Star, and I hadn't really worked it out. Like I just since Porn Star, I think 2 days before, and I had like tried it the summer previous, so I was like really psyched, and I was like, oh, I'll try like Chicxulub now into it. And like Adrian and Hunter were trying like pornification, which like climbs 12D into the like top of Porn Star. It's like this 45-meter epic like journey. And I was like, I'm not going to do that. I think I did it like the week later, but I was like, out there like try chicks, and I like just figured out the crux, and I was like, oh, I'm just gonna like, I think I was like a couple days on, and I was like, I'll just like go for it. Like the boulders figured out, and it was like getting dark, and Adrian was like, okay, whatever. And like, I like get through the boulder and like get into Porn Star, and I'm like, oh my God, like I'm so flamed, and it's just like classic. I'm just gonna like talk about the classic red point experience that everyone has had right now for 15 minutes. But I like, and you like, there's like this incredible sequence at the top because Porn Star is probably like one of the best. It's one of the best sport rids I've ever done, and just like hitting these moves that I had to have so dialed to do Porn Star, but hitting them like so limit, you know, and you're just like head snapping every move, and like I hadn't been sport climbing a ton before that trip to World Wall. I was actually training in the gym in Truckee, and I was working at a country club restaurant that summer, and got up there and like hadn't had a red point experience like that, and like it's felt like a kind of a long time. And I was like, oh, this is like what I really love. Like this is what got me so psyched on climbing originally, and it was like cool to go back to that. Because like when you're switching between disciplines and like gaining strength in new places, I like, you know, what first got me psyched was like barely latching every hold on my sport projects in Taos, like learning how to climb. So it was like fun to do that. And what's cool is like sometimes you have that experience on a big wall and it's just more, you know. And I think like Leo Holding in his like movie on the Prophet like starts and he's just like, yeah, big wall climbing is just like more. You know, it's bigger, it's better. And like, I think that can apply. And like, you just take that experience you have at World Wall and you like do it 3,000 feet off the ground and it took 6 days to get there. And it's like, makes it really awesome, you know? And
That's
it's just
so
like,
sick.
Makes it so full value.
Yeah.
And like, I think, so I don't know if that's like a ton of learning from sport climbing this past year.
It is. I
But
mean,
that was
it
like a
is.
memorable experience. For
Memorable. Yeah. I mean, you're kind of right. Like it is like the quintessential, and in my experience, maybe kind of rare experience, like the pinnacle of the experience of sport climbing is like, oh fuck, like I'm here, I haven't fallen, and I've done this link before, but I've never been this pumped on this section, you know, and then like just it's gonna take everything. Like I just have to climb perfectly and give it everything to have any chance, and then like somehow you get through it, and oh my god, those moments are just the absolute coolest. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember Hunter being at the base, and he's like he like gets everything so dialed, and he like gets if he like figures out a move and it's like not even that hard, but it's unpleasant, he's like, fuck it, like I'm not doing it. Like I want every move to feel like pleasant and good, and he's just gonna like reach through it and do it all the perfect beta. And I get down off of Chicks 11, he was just like, that was crazy. Yeah, he like never does that, but I think he like had to do it for a couple projects that summer, which was cool.
Yeah, nice.
But so yeah, everyone has to do it. It's so cool. And then big wall climbing. Yeah, like on El Niño, I learned like, I don't know. I don't want to be like as wet as I was. Like I want to get like, we just need to get a portaledge flat. Cause like the same thing happened to Adrian and I, like when we did Golden Gate ground up, like we were sleeping in the alcove and this was like January, like mid-January. Cause we just got all psyched. We were just like talking in our, we were renting a house in Bend. We were both at Cascades and we like saw this weather window and, it was like 5 days or like 7 days of like sun and like low 50s, high 40s in the valley. And we were like, let's go do Golden Gate. Cause we were all like, God, Smith Rock sucks. Like we got to get out of here. Like,
were you projecting something or?
I think.
Sorry, I don't mean to derail your story.
I don't think I was. I don't think I was. I probably got on Badman once and I was like, oh my God, this is still impossible.
Well, in winter at Smith can be so frustrating because like the sun, like climbing in the sun, you can do it, which is amazing.
Yeah.
It can be like, 20 degrees outside Fahrenheit and you're climbing in the sun in a t-shirt, but it's not necessarily, it's really hard to have good conditions. Like in the sun, it can be cold and greasy at the same time. Yeah. And then it's like way too cold in the shade to be able to climb in the shade. I had that a lot at Smith where I'm like, winter is just like tough, really tough.
Yeah. But then we were in our living room and Adrian's girlfriend at the time was there. And like the second we brought it up, apparently she like knew. She was like, they're leaving in 2 days, I'm sure. And me and Adrian we were like looking at our schedules and we were like, how much class? Like Adrian was like, how much class could I like skip and like not fail these classes? Because Cascades is kind of smaller. It's not like, I feel like other universities you can like, it's so big, you like don't have to go to class and you'll be fine if you like pass the test at the end. But Cascades is kind of small and your teachers like know you. And
but
you
also, I mean, I'm thinking it must be during the pandemic. Like, are you doing school online?
Last January.
Okay.
Well, yeah, so this is a year ago. We probably actually topped out like today, a year ago.
Okay.
Yeah. But so it was like kind of post-pandemic. Well, I don't know if that's ever going to be the case, but like we're talking and we ended up like, we're going to skip 8 days of class or 10 days of class. We're going to go to the valley and we like pack up the van and we like go to Gross Out and like get all of our food, grocery outlet. And then we like zip it down there. It's like so cold and there's no one in the valley and we start up. And I guess what I was getting to, well, like day one, there was like 50-mile-an-hour winds and we were like climbing the free blast and like hadn't like granite climbed in like a couple months, and the wind was so heavy that it was blowing dirt and leaves like from the valley floor into our eyes. And like one time Adrian was like falling and the wind totally like blew him back onto the wall. And like it was outrageous. But like night 2 we're like sleeping. We're like sleeping up in the alcove and we like set up the portaledge and there's like all the water like dries up in the daytime and then starts to seep at night on the walls. And I was like on the wall side of the portaledge and we don't have a fly. I was like asking around to try and get a fly before we left because it's like January but like we couldn't get one. So we're like, okay, no fly. And then I wake up in the middle of the night, like soaked, like so wet, and my sleeping bag just has like a puddle in it. And I realized that like I was in like a wall like the wall was seeping like right into my part of the portaledge, and Adrian was like totally fine. And I get out and I start to panic because it's like cold. You're like at January, but like oh my god, I'm so fucked. So I basically like stripped down, and luckily we're in the alcove, so you can kind of walk around like it's kind of a big bivvy. Yeah. And I like stripped down to my underwear and like wrap myself in ropes, and I just like lay on this
ropes.
Yeah, we have like our like lead line out, and I kind of like wrap. I kind of get like bundled up in just like gear, and I like lay down and like sleep in the alcove, like. And then like I wake up, like Adrian wakes up and he's like, why the fuck are you like not in the portaledge? And I'm like, dude, and I like barely slept. Like I remember I like put my wet sleeping bag on and I just like breathe into it. Like that's my one big tip is when you get really wet, you can like get in your sleeping bag and like breathe into it, and that like gets it pretty warm. It's like warm moisture.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But and then the next night or 2 nights later, I think we like slept under a waterfall, like below the move pitch, and which is insane because we woke up covered in frost, like totally covered. And I had sent the move pitch the night before when we got up there, and Adrian like fell off like post crux and like he wakes up in the morning pre-coffee, okay, like coming full circle, like pre-coffee, insane, like ties in and like sends the pitch. I don't even have like my leg loops on. Like I'm just sitting in my sleeping bag, like leg loops off the harness, and he just ties in, and I like throw him on belay, and I'm still like delirious, and he just like sends the pitch. And that whole night we were like it was insane. And like that whole night we were like in this waterfall that formed like right above our camp. And I remember like, yeah, I was so pissed. I was like, wow, we're gonna get soaked again. Like 2 nights ago was like the worst night of my life, and now we're getting totally soaked again. But then yeah, so I guess getting wet on big wall, like getting a proper fly is like useful, I guess. Like that's a big lesson. And haven't had a proper fly yet, and I'm stoked for the first like time to have one. But I think it happens to a lot of people. Like I think Brett Harrington and my friend Elliot, like they climbed Corazon and their like fly broke and they were in the rain for, I don't know. You can like learn a lot, I think, getting really soaking wet up there. Yeah.
Yeah. How much does a rain fly cost? A portaledge rain
it's
fly?
Expensive. It's like
I guess all that stuff.
Getting the ledge was like, I think the ledge is like, even with like pro deals, like BD, I think the ledge is still like 500 and the fly is like 400 or something. It's like the same. Or it's like 300. It almost doubles it. So we were like, yeah, that's not happening. So, but that was a great.
We can put together a GoFundMe if you guys want to support.
Oh no, we're totally fine. We're like
rain fly.
super privileged middle class white boys. We're doing just fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. But but yeah. No.
Do you enjoy that sort of thing? Like, are you the type of person that's like, I mean, hearing you tell this story, I'm like, if I had that happen, it would probably be at least a year before I signed myself up for another experience like that. And it seems like you have that turnover in about a week. You're like, yeah, I'm ready for another one.
Yeah, I don't know. I think like I'm quick to like be like, cool, that was like rough, and now I'm gonna boulder and like eat a bunch of food. And but like, you know, you had Amity on, and she's like different. Like I think I'm I'm like lazier and more laid back than like a lot of valley climbers usually. Like a lot of valley climbers are like getting down and then they're like, oh, I gotta get my blood moving, like a day off the wall, so I'm gonna go for a run and then like go climb this moderate 510, and I'm like, I'm not putting my rock shoes on for like 4 days. Okay. Because that was like, yeah, I'm just gonna like hang out and read and like stretch and just like chill and maybe go do some like moderate boulders or something. But then 5 days rolls around and then I'm like kind of psyched, but I'm probably not going to be psyched enough to like go. Like I remember when I got off of El Nino. Actually, no, this last Valley season, I'm like, I'm not doing anything overnight.
Okay.
Because I was like, didn't want to do it.
After it or
after El Nino.
Okay.
Because then I did like Wet Lycra in a day, and those were like day missions, and I was like, oh, that was fun. Like I'll keep doing that. And yeah, going back to like not always showing up and crushing. Like me and Nick Berry tried to climb El Corazon in a day, and like totally like didn't make it happen. So
okay.
There's another failure. Yeah, but yeah, I guess like on the top, I guess I wanted to talk a little bit about like big wall ethics, and like no, I don't really want to talk about it. What I want to talk about is just like style matters to me, I think. And like because everyone's always like, oh yeah, ground up or wrapping in, and it's all just like different experiences. Like going ground up is very different than wrapping in. And like I remember wrapping into like El Corazon and going for that in a day. It like made me appreciate all my ground up ascents because they're so different. And like same thing on Wet Lycra. Like that was fun to do all the tractioning, and like I'd probably go back and do it the same way, but it's just like makes me have more appreciation like for the times with routes that make sense to go ground up on, that it like seems realistic. Like I think it's like important to take those climbs and like don't take them for granted, and like do it in a style that would
Do you say don't take them for granted?
Yeah, don't take them for granted. Yeah. Oh wow.
That's so dumb. I'm sorry.
Oh, that was worth it. Yeah, just I don't know. I think it's like okay to like acknowledge that it's like more impressive too to do stuff like ground up. Like there's a difference. Like I don't know if people should be like hated on for wrapping in. Like I've done it, and you have to think about like how it's affecting other parties, like how Brent Bargon thinks about it. Like that's how he thinks about it. So
yeah, I love his ethic around it. For people that haven't heard that interview, he talks about like just having an ethic where you're affecting the least number of other people, basically.
Yeah,
which I think is really cool.
And that's cool. So like that's something to think about too. And but like acknowledging, I think it's like we don't need to like hate on people that are doing it one way, but like maybe people that are like going ground up in the mountains or something, like that's really rad and should be like acknowledged as being like it's like radder, really.
It's radder.
Yeah. But like it's still like very rad to wrap into these routes and do it. And I think like something that like on Wet Lycra, something that I did was like me and Jordan were going for team free, our first attempt, and we like set up which pitches we were going to lead, and he like goes for the 513. We both like lead the crux pitch and send, and then he goes for the next 513. Then I was going to take the next one, and we were kind of going to do that. And he like doesn't quite. He falls off. He like heartbreakingly falls off the like last move of this like really hard 13A stemming pitch. I thought was like one of the hardest pitches to send on the route, and it was like totally heartbreaking. And he pulls up and he kind of like wraps down for me to get. He wasn't sure what he wanted to do because I was like, oh well, one of us needs to lead it, like because you can try it again, I can try and lead it and stuff. And he wraps down and he doesn't clean the gear out. And like I know he was like bummed about not sending, so I didn't want to be like, okay, you have to take the gear out and stuff. And so I like led that pitch with the gear in, and it's like one of the pitches on the route that's like fully a gear pitch. There's like this one old rusty bolt, but besides that, it's like all gear. So I was like, I had like a bad taste in my mouth about leading that pitch with the gear in, but I was kind of like, oh, you know what? Like we were going team free, and like not everything works out exactly the way you want to, and that's just like a part of big wall climbing. But like I think I also acknowledge that if someone goes back and like does that pitch, placing all the gear, like it's superior to my ascent, and like I'm probably not going to go back and redo it. But like taking those experiences and like knowing that like maybe next time if I'm on a route like that, and it's like a big deal for me, like I might take an extra second and think about it, and then take that extra moment to take the gear out and then climb it. So you like feel good about it afterwards. And that's all like following your intuition and like gauging how you feel about everything and what you want your experience to be. And I think it's like cool that big wall climbing can like give you all different experiences in that way.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah.
And I think like people talk about it in like interesting ways. Like there's always like a lot of hate on people like wrapping in, and then like people being elitist for only going ground up. So it feels like tribal in that way sometimes. And like, I don't know if it has to be like that, but like still acknowledging the differences is probably good as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's a few things there that I'm hearing. I think the first one is just like it's become such a common phrase that I think I resonate with a lot, which is there's no cheating in climbing, only lying.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, just be honest about what you do. There's no rules really. Like
Yeah.
we've all kind of agreed upon like these rules to this game that we're playing. So yes, there's that. Like if you say you onsighted something, you're implying that you knew nothing about the route. So if you knew a few little things that might have made the difference, that's like, are you being honest? But that's what it is it comes down to honesty and like really owning what you did. And then the other thing is like, yeah, I just don't think there's anything good that ever comes from judging people for the way they did anything. Like that's just never helpful. You know, it's like, and people are usually judging based on their own personal experience that they had and like elevating that. And maybe there's, who knows what's going on there, maybe some insecurity or, you know, trying to elevate themselves by putting this other person down. But I think a lot of the time, a lot of that judgment is coming from people who haven't even fucking tried the routes that they're, you know what I'm saying? They're like reaching out and picking on people and like dragging someone down for having a less pure ascent of something. But they're like, you know, a keyboard warrior that's on the internet late at night just ranting and like, are they even out there trying these routes?
I think it's probably a little bit of both too. It's probably like a little bit, like I'm sure that occurs. And then I'm sure there's like the people that were really psyched on going up the Freerider for the first time. And then these like Gumbies wrapped in on them and like fucked them over. And then all the ropes are tangled and then they can't try the boulder before the sun hits. And then they're just like, grr, you know?
Right.
And like, I'm sure that like, and that's like frustrating and would probably affect the way you think about that ethic too. But then there's no point in like dwelling on it either. You just send it and then you're like, well, I did it from the ground. So boom. And then, you know, it's just like, that it just seems like there's like a bit of hate in that part of it, which I don't want there to be, but I think like if you just like, acknowledging what you did and acknowledging the difference also. And then like that will probably help, I think, with some of that hostility.
Right.
Yeah.
It's funny, kind of, because we're back in Waco, it reminds me of the conversations I had with Verm a year ago. And like that feels like very similar to my main takeaway from those conversations, which was, and I don't want to put any words in Verm's mouth, but he seems like a little judgy or maybe dismissive of the modern style. And I think what I was hearing him say is like, he just wants people to acknowledge the difference, you know, like going ground up on a boulder these days with information, having watched videos is different from going ground up in his day without pads, not knowing if the boulder was possible. You know what I'm saying? And like hitting the ground if you if you fell off the last move of C-spot run or whatever, or, you know, working it on like head pointing it and working on a rope first before you do it. It doesn't like take away from someone's like having climbed it, but it's just a different experience. And and you know, like I kind of still thinking back on that conversation, I still think like head pointing hard highball boulder problems is the key that has allowed us to evolve so much. And things like Too Big to Flail in Bishop or Ambrosia, like those would not have happened ground up without pads like that. They just wouldn't have happened, you know? So I have like a equal amount of respect for people that are doing that sort of thing, like Honnold or, you know, Nina Williams going and repeating those, and Verm doing his ground up no pads stuff back in the 80s with high top shoes and 2 chalk bags, you know?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I know. I don't know if we're breaking any new ground here.
Right.
Yeah, but yeah, we could go in circles and be like, well, you know, because it's just like Honnold soloing El Cap is like pretty cool, or it's very, very cool. But
he's got big fingers, so it's easy for him.
Well, but then like if someone goes up from the ground and does it without top roping it, like that's going to be cooler. It's probably never going to be done.
Oh, if someone on-site
if someone on-site free solo, it's going to be like, if someone on-site free solos the nose, it's going to blow that like out of the water.
Jesus Christ.
That's never going to happen.
Yeah.
But like, you know, if it did, then like, but
it makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah. But I guess
is that possible?
Looping back to getting really cold and wet on El Cap, I think those are good. Those are good experiences, and I hope that people that are psyched to to maybe go do it. Go do it. So
Bring a waterproof fly. That's the big takeaway.
yeah. Because then you can be like, playing a mandolin and a flute and having a great time and eating cheese like the Belgians do, but instead of like suffering.
What kind of climbing do you suck at? Is there anything that you find really hard?
Yeah, you'll on my bad days you'll hear me complaining about my negative ape index.
Okay.
But Forrest likes to poke at me because he's like,
Oh, you two are like the opposite.
Yeah, he's like 6'3" with a +3.
Uh-huh.
And I'm not that short. I'm 5'7" with a -1.
Okay.
So it's like not that extreme. But I struggle with like El Cap is actually a bummer because it's really height dependent usually. And like a lot of people are actually pretty open to talk about that. And people like change the grades for themselves, it seems. Like talking to Jordan, like he's like I have a really easy time on the A5, and that could be like a style thing. And then he like really has no issue on the move and the down climb, which were like the hardest moves for me. And like Emily Harrington took like, I think she took like 13B for the move pitch. And then like some people take like 12C for it.
Okay.
Because it's like, you can skip it, you can like skip the hard moves.
Yeah.
And like the same thing on like Corazon, the beak flake is like my buddy Prithipal had to walk me through on the phone his beta for like doing this like karate kick toe hook to get through this like boulder problem at the beginning of the pitch, which I think if you're tall, you just kind of like slam dunk on this jug and it's like over.
Mm-hmm.
So like I'll complain, but then I'll go to like Potosi and then I'm like, oh, thank God, like I'm this small,
Yeah.
I'm like, this is like really a rifle too.
Right.
But I've been climbing in Yosemite so long that I'm like, oh, I just wish I was 5'10" with a +2. Like Adrian's 5'9" with a +3, and like I'm so jealous. But
yeah.
But it makes me like not like to do like super big like squeeze blocks.
That makes sense.
Yeah. But yeah.
It all fits. I always felt like Smith was maybe a more height advantaged area than a lot of others because like anything that's like vertical or close to vertical, if you can like, if you can reach the next hold from a better foothold and just stand up, like it's just going to make it easier, and I think there's a reason why a lot of like taller, lanky people seem to excel really well at Smith.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then if you're your size, like cave climbing might be like your superpower,
And then it's just like who you're climbing with too. It's like, it's all comparison, right?
I didn't really get a chance on this trip to see you and Forrest project boulders together, but I would have loved to see that.
Yeah, it's funny. We do like, it's completely opposite.
Yeah.
But he's like, it's not like me and Adrian's beta is usually pretty different too. And we're like, people usually think, like I have a lot of friends that like think I'm taller than him. But just when we're like hanging out. But like I'm not. But our beta is usually different. But Forrest's beta is different from everyone's. Like
right.
He's crazy. He's really really big. But
and shout out to that guy Forrest Franklin. He just sent Spectre.
Good job, Forrest.
Good job, Forrest.
Yeah, we've been poking fun at him.
So impressive. You have been.
Yeah, he's like, oh yeah, I was in Bishop, and we're like, what were you trying there?
We haven't heard this before.
Yeah, no, it's good. But
I'd be telling everybody if I did Spectre.
Yeah.
God, it's so impressive. How are we doing on your list?
Let me look into it. I think we're doing pretty good. I think we've kind of like casually tangented into everything. Tangented? Is that a verb?
It is now. That's how we do it over here. Just let it run long enough and you hit everything important.
I guess no, that's a lot of it. But I guess I've had some other good, like, I don't know. I feel like this is going to be a different conversation than what you've had. Like, or I feel like a lot of your talks are like, you just had like Ollie Tour on, right? Or you just published that. And I'm sure, I haven't listened to it, but I'm sure it's like a lot of like seconds on the hangboard and comparing each one.
Surprisingly, no, not too much. Yeah. But that's not off brand for me.
But like, I appreciate when you do those ones, because it's, but I don't have like a ton of that knowledge. Yeah. But I do have some like good stories and I hope people are just enjoying listening to them.
Yeah. It's so much fun.
I know Adrian and I, like when we did the Freerider together and we met, like, I think this was like 4 months after we met or 3 months after we met, and it just like escalated to like, oh, let's just go ground up and I'll cap. And I think Tyler Caro, who I was talking about doing that thing in Patagonia with his Basque friend Ema and one other guy that I don't know, but he was there and crushing at the time. He was like, was doing all these like 8 climbs really fast, and he was like, yeah, you guys got to go ground up, and he was like really in support, and he met us.
Didn't he and Amity do Golden Gate?
They did Golden Gate that season. Yeah. And it was like his first time brushing a hold. It was like a whole thing. And then, but he like sees us in the parking lot. We had like a brand new haul bag, a brand new swivel. Oh my God, wait, I forgot about this. And he's like, we have like a how to big wall book. Yeah, swivel's like you put on the top of your haul bag. So when you release it and it spins, it doesn't twist the rope. It spins this little swivel on top.
Oh, smart. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, you dig it. You have like the engineering mind. You'd like all the gadgets. I'm not into it, but people are. But Tyler sees us in the parking lot and he's like, he's with my buddy Evan. And he's like, yeah, you guys are doing what, Freerider or something? You know, like, because he thought we were total gumbies. And he's like, yeah, I'll give you 20 beers if you send. And then we were like, and then me and Adrian left like, God, this dude Tyler's a fucking asshole. Like, what the hell? And now we're like super close friends, and he's like a really awesome dude. But he's like, give 20 beers if you send. And then we like almost send, and we get down and like tell him all of our stories, and he's like super psyched. And but like we and Amity and Will and Sharp are right above us, and they like thought we were gonna bail the whole time because they pass us. So we like start up before them, and we get up to like their second camp, which is like 3 pitches above first camp, because we slept on hard ledges, and then we climbed up below the monster off with, and we get up there, and Adrian starts up the like ear, which is this 5'7" chimney before the monster at night, and like my phone just died. And I had just gotten this like really grim text message from a friend. And then I was like, oh, well, you know, can't respond to that. And like put it away in the haul bag. And I think Adrian's phone was already dead. And our battery packs that we had brought to like charge them weren't working. They just didn't work. And we were like below the ear, and it starts raining. And we like didn't know it was supposed to rain. And we don't have a portaledge. And we so we're like at this hanging belay, like below the monster. And we're like, all right, let's bail back down to like that ledge that we can go sleep on. And we like huddle and we like wrap with our bags that we have no idea how to haul, and we have like a dynamic rope hauling.
Oh my God. And
we're like climbing with the haul line on our back, because usually what you do is you climb with a tag line and then you pull up a haul kit in your gloves and your shoes and stuff. And we didn't have any of that, so we would just we just climbed with the haul line, and then we like put it on a micro traction that we had with us and hauled. And it made it go really fast, but it was like really hard. It was like incredibly hard. And we were like wrecked by day, like 1.5. And then, but we wrapped down to like the place that was like 3 pitches above our last camp. And we have to like wrap with our bags that we just hauled. And we sleep in the rain, and we're like huddled in this like little cave, and our feet are getting soaked, but we're like, our heads aren't quite. And apparently Adrian like totally thought we were going to bail in the morning. And I like never even thought about it. And I know Adrian was psyched to keep going. And then he was kind of like, yeah, dude. And then we like wake up in the morning, and I'm like, all right, cool. Let's go do the monster. I had like never climbed an off with. We had tried this like 5'10" off with at the Baseville Cap like 5 days before, and like got so shut down. We had to like bail. And then we go and do it. And we both have like 1.5 epic leads and get up to camp, and we're totally wrecked. And a couple days. And then Amity and Will pass us this day, and they like do the monster above us, ahead of us. And they're sleeping on the spire, like 50 feet above our camp in the alcove. And they're like, yeah, they're totally going to bail. And we're like, hey guys, we like just met them. We're like, can you all wake us up in the morning? Our phones died and we like need an alarm. And they're like, yeah, sure, no problem. And they're just like, they're totally bailing. And then, yeah, we were like, I was able to like send the boulder problem like later the next night. And like Adrian got like heartbreakingly close, and he comes up, and we keep climbing and had like a total epic on the enduro corner the next day, and we get up to the Scotty Burke off with, which is this like heinous off with like overhanging flared 5s off with crack, and we start up, and I can't do it, and yeah, so I like keep climbing, and we had dropped the topo like 2 pitches before, and there's this like crack that you're like not supposed to go up, so I like go up the wrong way at the top of the pitch, and this pitch is like terrifying and super exposed, and I'm like lost for like an 1.5 hours, and the sun's going down, and we were like supposed to be up at the top, and Adrian I think just like is crying at the belay, and he like thinks we're gonna die, and I'm just crying on lead, and I think we're gonna die, and I like finally get up to the thing, and it's like too windy, and he's too far away to like communicate, and he finally like cuts the cuts the bags loose, and I can haul, and yeah, we sleep on top and go down, and it was total epic. So we've come a long way since then, but people like are like, why the fuck are you hauling with a dynamic rope and without like a 2-to-1? But yeah, no, it's it's cool to have those experiences.
I feel like the name of this episode is going to be Sam Stroh botching it and sending anyways.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Yeah.
I love it, dude. That is like the stuff. That is like those are such classic climbing stories.
Yeah. But then I was really psyched, and that was in the spring, first spring season in the valley. And then in the fall, I went back and did it in a day because I was like, well, you just skip all the hauling and
wow.
And you don't have to do any of the heinous stuff. And
how'd the Scotty Burke go the second time around? Did you have more practice or?
Yeah, so I ended up wrapping in after going ground up the first time, and I rehearsed the Scotty Burke and the boulder.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and just wrapping El Cap by yourself was really exciting at the time. That was like pretty formative.
Yeah.
And then I was like,
sounds epic.
Yeah, like ropes getting stuck but yeah, I just practiced I think I did the monster too, and then learned a ton about like off with climbing that like one day wrapping it, and then I went and did it with my buddy Graham. Yeah, did it in like a fun way, like no simul climbing. And like no tactics, like just he just jugged and we hung out and just like listened to a bunch of Black Sabbath and ate gummy worms and like it was a great day. And yeah, Adrian just went and finally did it because he had to catch up, and he fell a ton. he like simul climbed half of it. We did it like a little bit faster than me, but I think he fell like 10 times or something. He had a total epic.
Wow,
it was great to hear about.
That's so sick. Quick question: favorite big wall snack?
I like never eat candy, but I've been like taking up sour gummy worms with me. So I'll like eat those. Me and Adrian took summer sausages on Golden Gate, these like massive sausages and avocados, and we would just like, we had like basically a sausage each a night, and we would like crack them open and like dip them in an avocado. And that like sounds disgusting, but it was like so good in the moment.
Sounds amazing.
But my all my close friends know that I eat like an absurd amount of dark chocolate.
Okay.
So I'll take like a whole bar, like no matter what I'm doing, like bouldering or to the sport crag, and that'll be like one of my things I eat throughout the day. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna ask that next actually, like favorite big wall snacks and then favorite bouldering snacks, because it's so much more cush, you know, you can bring like a glass Tupperware if you want to or whatever.
Yeah. No, Madeline.
And you have to eat a lot here. Like Waco's like a full tour day in Waco is like a massive day, and you need to bring a lot of food. For sure. Yeah, my girlfriend got this like really awesome lunchbox, and she like convinced me to get one. And she like sets it up all super nice and like charcuterie like every single day with like all things for lunch. And I just like kind of throw some like power cubes in there and some stuff. But I think I used to be more like psyched on bringing nice stuff to the crag, but I'm pretty content with like dark chocolate and like a can of fish and like a cup of tea. Yeah. Nice, dude. It's working for you. What's going on with your knee, man? We should talk about that a little bit. Oh, yeah. I totally had forgotten. Yeah. I'm sorry. It must not be too bad. I mean, I don't mean to diminish it, but you were able to walk over here to my van in the morning, and it looks like you're not hobbling around on crutches. Yeah. Because I just got a text from you yesterday, or a message, a voice message or something that said like, you know, you blew out your knee, you're leaving Waco. We got to do this thing now. And I was just like, fuck, like I hate to hear that, but... Yeah, I'm hoping... Several podcasts have actually happened because someone got injured, and they're like, "Well, now I've got time to talk." Yeah, and I'm always like, "Is that good timing for a conversation or bad timing for?" It always works out. Yeah. So appreciate you being here. But what's going on with your knee? Yeah, I was just trying. Well, I appreciate you caring about it, but I was just on this like. It's just like a crack through a roof with slopers in it, and you like heel hook out the roof. And I was like heel toe camming in the crack, and it like, I was like heel toe camming really. I thought the boulder was actually going really smooth, and I like wasn't fighting at all or anything. And I like just heel toe cammed it into the crack, and then like back flagged with my other leg really hard to like go out to this hold, and it just like super loud pop, and it buckled and came down, and it was like really weak. And I was like, oh well, that was definitely my knee. I should so I just like hung out, and it wasn't really painful until the next night. And the next night it got like really stiff and inflamed, but I've been trying to just kind of like walk around and keep blood flowing, and have a PT appointment tonight with like a virtual one with someone in Vegas. So I'm gonna head there and get to the gym and start doing PT and trying to heal up. So yeah. So it sounds like it's you can walk on it, you can weight it a little bit. It's not like I can stand on one leg like pretty well. I can't like move around on it. Yeah. I don't mean to. I mean, knees are so complicated. There's so much stuff going on in there, and I'm obviously not an expert, so I don't mean to oversimplify. But I had a really similar thing last year. Actually, I was like I tried loaded with power and like gave it a flash go and like used the beta where you put the heel hook in and you like are cranking laterally really hard on your heel hook, and just like literally everybody, there was like 6 people there and like they all heard it go and everyone's like, oh
Yeah.
And I dropped off and kind of did that whole thing where you're like your eyes are kind of big and you're just like inside your body, making an assessment like, oh, how bad was that? Like, how bad's that gonna hurt? And it was kind of similar sounding where I could weight it. I could like, gently do kind of like a one-legged squat. And I was like, okay, it works. It's not like I blew out my ACL. And it was like, it ended up being like 3 weeks of wearing a brace and just kind of babying it and avoiding heel hooks and avoiding things that really like loaded it laterally at all. And
yeah, that's what Forrest was saying.
Hopefully you're back in action soon. You're young.
Yeah, I have that.
Just take some collagen
too. Yeah, exactly. I know. I just ran out. Yeah. I got to get on like the quadruple. I got to just like put collagen into an IV and then like it'll be just fine. Yeah. But definitely blessed with youth for the injuries. But I know, and it's always right when like everyone's getting injured and you're like, I just feel so robust and good and like my fingers feel great. I've been doing such good finger like recovery stuff, and then like boom, knees out, and then you're like, But I'm glad your thing didn't last long. And I know Forrest just hurt his knee in Bishop, and he was like, I mean, he did Spectre, so he was just fine. But he's like, I know I did that, but I can't really heel hook or drop me, but you should be fine. And I'm like, I just booked tickets to Spain. I'm just fine. Yeah. Just won't heel hook or drop you while I'm there. Yeah.
Classic.
But it should be just fine. Yeah.
Yeah. I think mine ended up being like a minor like meniscus sprain maybe or something like that. And I mean, it was probably less than like a month before I was like 100%. So hopefully you're back in action in no time.
Yeah.
So you going to Spain soon?
Yeah, we just put tickets at the end of March.
Nice.
Yeah, we're going to Spain for like a couple weeks and then going to Greece for a month. We're going like a little later in the season, but we'll just have like vacation, like climbing in swimsuit temps. It'll be great.
That sounds amazing.
And then to Sayus for the first time after that. So
nice.
Yeah.
Cool.
And everyone's trying to convince us to go to Rocklands, and they're like, it's super cheap. It's great.
I'll be there.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, you're going to. Everyone's going, but we're just kind of like, it's not that cheap as everyone's saying. We kind of just planned for the 3 months in Europe. So yeah, we'll see. But super psyched. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you fly halfway around the world, it's not nothing.
Yeah,
it's
for
not
sure.
cheap. Yeah, one thing I've been meaning to, this is a whole other thing, but I've been meaning to look into like, I need to buy the tickets and then look into CO2 offsetting. That's something I want to.
Right.
I've never done that for a trip before, and I'm like, I should look into that.
On the Skyscanner app that tracks. Sorry for interrupting, but the app that like shows you the cheapest flights, it has like airlines that have better emission standards.
Okay.
So that could be something to look at.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll do.
And most of them, it seems like it's like a 20% reduction.
Okay.
Which probably in terms of air flight is like quite a bit. It's probably not super minimal. Yeah.
It's not nothing. So,
yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Okay.
And they're like not that much more expensive.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah. How are your notes doing?
Good. Yeah, I'm ready to wrap up, I think.
Sweet.
Just have a few more kind of closing questions for you. You mentioned, I have so many training conversations on the podcast, and you're here to share more stories and just kind of the, almost like you're like the new old school, it's like the fly by the seat of your pants and just figure it out and have an adventure along the way sort of approach, which I love. But I want to ask you these 2 questions. I don't know if you do any training at all, but can you think of any common or generally accepted advice in the climbing sphere that you disagree with? And do you have one piece of advice that you want to leave with people?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've definitely done my own like experimental training, and there's so much like information out there to like sort through, and like so much stuff to read and listen to. So it's like really hard not to like hear all of it and want to see what works for you. So I've definitely had like last summer after Valley season, I went to Truckee and got a job, and I did like a 6-month training cycle in the gym.
6 months?
Or wait, 6 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah. No.
Okay.
I'd still be in it. 6-week training cycle in the gym. And was like doing a lot of kilter boarding because that's what they had at the gym. and I was doing like a lot of max hangs. And that's what I've done a lot of. I'm like just now starting to mess with repeaters because I've like upped my power a lot to somewhere that I'm like feeling good about before getting back into sport climbing. And I'm psyched to like add a bunch of endurance onto that because I really haven't, I feel like my endurance has been lacking a lot recently. Even when I'm like on El Cap and there's like some 511 climbing before like some V7, I'm kind of like, oh, I'm kind of pumped now and want to get through that. But you never hear about endurance training from like J-Star people because they're like have trained it for years and that their baseline is so like I was talking to Nick Berry about this because like I was trying Zulu and rifle and I was like really struggling because it's really pumpy. And I was like, dude, no one ever talks about training endurance and you like really need to do it.
Yeah.
It seems like. And everyone's like, oh no, the moves are just easier so you don't get pumped. And I'm like, that is true, but not true enough. You know? And it's like just building that base. And I know it happens quickly, but I think it happens like, it's not going to happen like in 2 days, you know?
Yeah.
So like showing up on to a sport climbing area, like if you're going to spend 2 months there, it's fine, you know? But if you're only going for like a month or 3 weeks or a weekend, especially like you want to have that baseline. Like, so I'm psyched to like maybe try and build up some more endurance in the future and like hearing, I guess, yeah, that kind of answers the question, but I don't have any like anecdotal like evidence or like opinions because I haven't really trained it a ton in the past, but definitely not hearing a ton about endurance training from like your podcast or the Power Company podcast or stuff like that, and like only hearing about like upping power and Andra only talking about upping power, and it's like, well, he only started upping power after he had climbed 15A, you know?
Totally.
So it's like, I think
and he probably climbs like 250 days a year or more.
And I haven't tried like a ton of 514 sport routes and stuff, but I've been getting less shut down by individual moves than I thought. I'm getting more shut down by getting too gassed. So maybe that'll be like a good antidote to hearing. Like I'm just excited to see like how it goes. But I'm also, you know, full picture. I've been like trying to increase my strength and power for the last like year and a half. So, you know, doing a lot of like weighted pull-ups, weighted hangs in the gym. And I get like maybe 2 months of gym time a year. Okay. So like 3 or 4 on like a good year if I'm like doing more school or something, like when I was doing more school. So, but yeah, I'm excited to go to the gym in Vegas and like train some endurance. And also, I mean, you can't like not climb on the moon board. So, and I do like a bunch of board climbing. So, and I tore my, I think I like partially tore my labrum last fall in the spring, or 2 falls ago in the spring. And I did that like before Golden Gate. And then I like kind of re-injured it on Golden Gate, like on the last move of the A5, and like definitely like tore it more, retore it, and had to like lower and send the pitch before like the pain set in, you know?
Dude.
And, but like, so I went back to band and like finally went to the PT, and he was like, yeah, I mean, you know, you're screwed. And I was like, so I did a ton of, like strengthening for my shoulder.
No surgery.
Okay. And then, I like did a bunch of strengthening for my shoulder, and then actually, what was like the big breakthrough with that injury was like working on just like making sure the muscles weren't like too tight and like balled up. So like I got like a Theragun and started using that like all the time on my shoulder, and I had this like really horrible impingement after injuring it. I like strengthened it all the time and was doing all the rotator cuff and labrum workouts, and like those are good, but they can like make your shoulder so impinged that you like can't engage it over your head and stuff properly, and just like all the shoulder mechanisms aren't working right. So like fixing that and like making sure like mobility is like back on track. That was like, that's when my shoulder started working properly again. So I got like too sucked into strengthening it and needed to like work on mobility and like taking care of the whole system. Yeah. So that was a big breakthrough with that. But yeah, no, I like training too. It's kind of like I just go through phases of getting really psyched on sport climbing, then getting really psyched on bouldering, and then getting really psyched on big wall climbing, and then I get really psyched on like training. I'll be like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna go crush the hangboard, and usually that one lasts the least. Yeah, like training lasts the least, and then bouldering lasts like not quite as
Second
long.
shortest,
Yeah, second shortest, and then sport climbing, and then big wall climbing are like kinda equal. I can stay equally psyched.
Okay.
But it just kind of cycles through like, with everything else, and yeah, like mostly board climbing and you're like basic J-Star. Like I'll just like listen to a J-Star podcast and I'll train for 6 weeks, you know? Like, yeah. But I think I need to not do that as much because, you know, his endurance like capabilities are insane. And,
right. And it's easy to forget. I mean, like, he trains for 6 to 8 weeks a year probably, or has for like many years. And it's all strength and power focused. And it's easy to look at that and be like, okay, that's the key. But, you know, he spends 10 months a year plus like trying hard sport routes constantly all the time and has like such a massive base. And I really resonate with what you're saying. I feel like I've had periods where like when I lived at Smith and was sport climbing super consistently, I could have like 2-month blocks where I just focus on getting stronger and then come back and like send my project without really having to work on endurance. But now that I live on the road and like have been bouldering more the last couple of years, that's like absolutely not the case anymore. Like if I want to have a peak sport climbing performance, something that last year taught me is that I need to have like at least a month to just get fit again and be able to apply all that strength to the wall and like be efficient and be relaxed and all that stuff. So and you can kind of get it by climbing, but I think supplementing a little bit. I think that is something I've underappreciated too, because we don't talk about it much. Is like actually doing supplemental endurance training in the gym. Yeah. And
like forgetting how it feels like to get to a rest on a sport route and how it will go away. You know.
Right.
Like if you haven't done that in a long time on like a consistently steep sport climb, and then you like get to a rest and you're like really gassed and you're like, there's no way I can recover. I think like one of my strong suits is recovering.
Okay. Like
when I was first learning how to climb, I could like get a lot back on little holds. That was like a strong suit of mine. But you like forget that the discomfort will go away if you like keep breathing at the rest, you know? So just learning how to sport climb too is important.
Yeah. Another thing, you were talking about Zulu, and I feel like that's another big lesson that last year taught me, because I had like a 5-week block where I was trying this like Joe Exotic, this like 14AB thing in the Utah hills with Joe. And I didn't do any sport climbing leading up to that, and I didn't really climb on anything else that whole time. I was just projecting. And it's really hard to get enough fitness to send when you're just projecting the route, you know, because you're only climbing as big of links as you can do. And you're never, like if the route is, you know, let's say the hard part of the route's 35 sustained moves in a row or whatever, until you send, you're never linking that many hard-ish moves in a row, you know? Yeah. So that's something I've been thinking about for this coming season, because I'm going to go back and try it again, but I'm like, I'm going to give myself a month in the hurricane to just like send some 513s and like get that kind of, you know, that being able to be on the wall for 15 minutes straight and actually send. Right. And then like hopefully bring that plus like the strength training from this last year and like put them together a little bit more. But yeah.
No, we don't talk about it much.
Yeah. Endurance training. Now everyone's just confused.
Well, I guess it like people think it's like easier to just train endurance all the time, but it isn't really. It's so easy to like throw a harness on and like put some weights on your, like it's so easy to do a max hang for 10 seconds and then rest for 2 minutes and do that 4 times and you're like, cool, I'm stronger now. Right. You know, it's really hard to like stay on the wall for 45 minutes trying to do that like arcing protocol or like doing 4x4 is like, you know, those are like nauseating. Like I don't want to do it because I'm like, I'll just like do a 10-second hang.
Yeah. Totally. And I don't know why, but probably because of how the training culture has shifted, but we don't have the tools for it as much anymore either. Like every climbing gym that's been built in the last like 5 years has a moon board and or a kilter board and or whatever. And all these hang boards and stuff, but like how many of them have a tread wall? Yeah. You know? Yeah. Like I haven't climbed on a tread wall since like 2015. And it was massively formative for me. Like at the Bend Rock gym, I would just do like, when I was first really getting into sport climbing at Smith, I would have seasons where I would do blocks of like 30 minutes on the wall or something. Yeah. Like multiple blocks in a session, you know? Just like fucking just hating life. Just
I'm sure that does a lot too.
Yeah.
Like it just gets you so used to being in the vertical. You know?
Totally.
Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, thanks, Sam.
Yeah.
This has been fun, man.
It's been super fun.
I'm really sad that you hurt your knee, but I'm glad that we were able to do this. So
yeah, me too.
Whatever that means.
Yeah. Thanks for making the time, and I hope it was a useful conversation.
I loved it.
Yeah,
I loved it, man. That was super fun. Is there anything that you wish people spent more time thinking about? That's a question I like to ask people these days.
Yeah, I guess like recently I've just been trying to, when you're on the road rock climbing, which isn't all your listeners, but even if I'm sure if you're like very consistent at one job as well, and like time just passes really quickly, and you get really excited about something, and then you start doing it all the time, then you like lose appreciation for it, and like everyone experiences that. But I guess just trying to be just like present in everything that I'm doing, and not letting like a whole month in Waco pass by without like, because you're always thinking about your projects or how you're going to feel in a week and everything, but also like taking the time to really enjoy just like being at the boulders each day. And that's like, I don't know, so typical, but
no, it's
I think
great.
It's pretty important, and it's kind of like I've always appreciated time, or I guess before we had this conversation, I was kind of thinking about like wall climbing and how it can be like a lot of those big experiences you get so excited about, and you kind of feel like, if the experience is like a river, you're like watching it from the shore. It all like kind of go by, like your experience on this wall or whatever, your trip to Waco or your trip to France, sport climbing. And it's like, well, you don't want to like watch it all pass by. You kind of want to like dive into it and like be a part of it. And sometimes, and it's like, I don't know. I think I can be I think I can like watch it go by sometimes and just be on the shore the whole time. But like the whole point is like being like in the river of experiencing like what's going on and not just watching it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really thought you were going to say river of life for a second there.
Oh, yeah. That would be too much. Yeah. But be like, yeah, it's like, and I get so frustrated on the wall when like when the bags are fucking stuck or something and you're trying to haul, and it's like, well, they're not going to be stuck forever. But it feels like they are, but that's just like a part of, it's just like a rapid, I guess, Yeah.
No, I love it, man. I mean, I think everyone can relate to that. And there is this really strange phenomenon where it feels like the older you get, just the faster time goes by. And the more like, I feel like for me personally, like there's more things in life that I have found that I like. And so in some ways my experiences are a little bit more, similar, like year in, year out. It's like I have this like climbing circuit that I love. And so I go to the same places and I'm just trying harder things at the same places and seeing, always meeting new people, but it's kind of the same vein of like, oh, I met these climbers at the campground, and it starts to feel similar. And it's really easy if you are standing on this shore watching your life go by as kind of an observer and not living it, not being present or like looking forward to the next thing all the time. It's easy for like a whole trip or like a whole year to go by in kind of a blur. So yeah. I mean, that's some deep, a lot of smart people have spent a lot of time thinking about this. I think you're touching on something that's kind of a deep, universal truth that a big part of maybe the meaning of life or something is just really being in it minute by minute. So yeah,
but it can be really hard.
It can be really hard.
Sure. So, yeah.
Well, thanks, dude.
Yeah.
Really fun to chat with you. Thanks for all the stories. And best of luck with your knee recovery. I hope your PT in Vegas helps you out and you're back to it before you know it.
Yeah. Thanks, Steven. I appreciate that.
All right.
It's been a great talk.
Yeah. Likewise. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Sweet.
Move with the rhythm. Shake it up, stop when the clock hits 13. Sing 1, 2, 3, 4. Cause no one can do it like we do it, like we do it, like we do it. Cause no one can do it like we do it, like we do it, like we do it. Cause no one can do it like we do it, like we do it, like we do it. Cause no one can do it like we do it, like we do it, like we do it.